welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Ben Hanson, and I'm joined by my permanent co-host, one Timothy Turi.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Ben Hanson, and hello, everyone, and thank you for watching or listening to the Game Informer Show podcast.
Never let this new tone drop, Tim. Keep up this super sweet, sincere
Oh my goodness.
tone.
I don't even understand what you're talking about, new tone, but it's just a pleasure to be here.
And sounding exactly the same, we have one Daniel Tack for the first time on the podcast.
Hi.
Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Ben Hanson.
Perfect. That's the Dan Tack we all know and kind of like. And then we have Andrew Reiner.
Hey, guys.
How's it going, man?
Good. Wow,
Welcome.
so much energy here. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun. You were on the very first episode of this podcast, and you have not been back since.
Nope.
Tim and I had a pretty severe, serious meeting
Hernia.
about it.
Oh.
Oh, it was like, cut that guy out completely.
That's right. But we're glad to have you back.
Oh, thanks.
And Dan, I'm in particular happy to have you back
Is that
on this
so?
podcast in the new rebooted form because you are our resident PC editor and the PC expert and basically just all-around genius strategist.
Those
sound
are all
right?
accurate.
Yeah, okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. But the biggest release this week is finally coming out of beta is Blizzard's Heroes of the Storm. Blizzard's MOBA, which you say they don't really like it being called a MOBA.
You don't call it a MOBA?
They call it a hero brawler because, I mean, it's a MOBA-like, right? It's certainly in the genre. There's no way we're using that term to refer to it.
Right.
I think it's completely okay.
Now, did you call it a MOBA-like or a MOBA light?
This one's actually it's just a MOBA.
It's just a straight-up MOBA.
You're right.
Don't dance
there
around
are
it.
lots of significant differences from some of the other core offerings, but I mean, in its essence, yes, it's fine settling under that flag.
Sure. So we should point out in the second segment of this podcast, we talk a little bit more about Heroes of the Storm because we have the lead producer for the game on, and his name is Kaeo Milker.
That's right.
After email questions.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the final segment's going to be him talking about a little bit of the history of the project and it's kind of like what it's like to work at Blizzard. So Dan joined me on that. So thank you for that, Dan. But now, Heroes of the Storm is out. Let's talk about it, man. Give your full impressions.
Well, everyone here should try it at least.
I haven't played since it got into the final. What are like the big changes between?
The big change from say yesterday to today, nothing significant beyond a new character.
Oh, cool.
But changes over the course of time, as it's been through the tech alpha and beta phase, obviously many changes have been made. It's a lot cleaner and it plays a lot smoother than it did back in the day.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's many differences to the game. It's hard to even go through them all at this point. That make it different than Dota 2 or League of Legends,
Sure.
or any of the other when you think of MOBA, I think of this game, right? So it's by far the most accessible version. So people who are like, oh man, I don't want to get into MOBAs because I'll get yelled at for being new, or they're too hard, or they foster toxic communities. All these aspects, you don't really need to worry about as much here because a lot of the factors that have to do with the burden of knowledge are gone. There's no item shop to learn. You don't need to know every character's abilities if you're going to go lane against them. Like, oh God, I can't be within 3 feet of that character because they'll do a move that will kill me instantly.
Right.
So nothing like that. I mean, it's really, really focused on team play.
The group XP is part of that, right?
Right. Shared
Right.
team experience.
It's interesting to me, just Blizzard's path in the history of the industry of they're never really pioneers. They just take the pioneers' work and then refine it and make it approachable, but just deep enough to still be interesting. And they have not strayed from that formula forever.
Polish. It's just they're selling amazingly polished games.
Also, just nailing the tutorial is something that they're extremely good at. They actually did a great talk. I think it was at GDC last year where they're talking about just for an hour, they talked about just designing the Hearthstone tutorial and how much they learned from the Plants vs. Zombies tutorial. That was their biggest inspiration, which is
cool.
a weird one. But
makes a lot of sense.
And even if
Yeah.
you're not interested in MOBAs or Heroes of the Storm,
Right.
if you're a Blizzard fan, I think at least just downloading this free game and checking out their tutorial just to see all those characters from Blizzard's universe interacting
That's
together.
really fun.
That is a huge part of the game.
Who is the new character? You said there's a new character.
Yesterday.
Is it someone we know?
Is it Blackthorn?
It is not Blackthorn, not yet. It's Johanna, the Crusader from Diablo 3.
it's interesting that they're giving all of the Diablo 3 characters official names now, right? There's
Yes,
never
that
really-
is interesting.
Maybe
Yes.
in some novelization somewhere, all of the different classes have
And
names.
Diablo's name is Chaz. It's his real name's Chaz.
Right. Chaz Bergstrom.
It fits.
Yeah, I
It-
guess
it
it
does.
works. So the rest of the group, Reiner, have you tried out Heroes of the Storm yet?
No, I just watched Tack play it, a year and a half ago?
It was a while ago when we did the
What
first
was it,
sort
the
of
alpha?
initial look. That was in the alpha, yes.
Okay.
You get the idea then. But I think Tim feels the same way. We talked about Heroes of the Storm a little bit earlier on this podcast weeks ago, but I feel like the MOBA genre is taking over the world, probably the world's #1 genre at this point. Is that fair to say?
I mean, yeah. I mean, in terms of concurrent numbers, sure,
Right.
absolutely.
And this is like, I've never really been able to get into it. I've tried Dota 2. I tried the original Dota. It's never really clicked for me. I've never really felt passionate about it. And I feel like this is like...
It doesn't click for you. You have to keep clicking everywhere you want to go.
Oh, so that was the confusing part.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but this is like, I feel like our last stand. This is the last boat onto this MOBA vessel before it sails off in the ocean, and we're left behind as old, out-of-touch gamers forever.
I don't think that's true at all.
I don't think that's true either. I think the MOBAs that are... There are going to be some MOBAs that stick around, and there are many that are not. Like, as we just heard this week, Infinite Crisis is closing its doors.
After a couple of months.
Yeah.
Of official launch, sure. But of course, these games have extremely long alpha beta periods where...
Definitely, but as far as like a big budget one that's going to have a great community and is designed to be approachable, like...
Well, you have Smite. That's coming soon on
Smite.
Xbox One.
You have that's another story entirely, is the whole like MOBA to console transition, and you've got some big players there too with Smite,
Orcs Must Die Unchained,
Gigantic, and Battleborn, and Orcs Must Die Unchained. Sure, there's all kinds, and those are what I would consider. And some of those are like MOBA likes, right?
Right,
because they don't take the exact same rule sets.
Yeah. So curious, Tim, you played a lot of Battleborn. I played a fair amount too on the cover story trip, and you seemed really, really into that. And I'm curious if like the passion that you felt over Gearbox's upcoming Battleborn, which is a first-person game, kind of carried over into Heroes of the Storm, and you played as much as you did.
I think as much as there are similarities between like the overall formula and stuff, like the perspective changes everything. Like I just don't they don't compare in my mind. Like what I learned playing Battleborn and what I liked about it just does not stack up about anything in Heroes of the Storm.
Sure.
Because it's just so different to be doing, precise aiming in a first-person shooter versus, just clicking and lining up skills and stuff like that. But maybe that's because I don't have a ton of experience with the overall formula and like the sort of meta games that link in with like MOBAs and how the strategy just goes so deep once you play a lot of it. And so I guess, no, it didn't really overlap that much.
Sure.
I would agree with that. I'd say that the third and first person MOBAs, they're way different than the isometric ones. So it's a completely different world once you move into that territory.
Yeah, definitely. So Dan, I played a little bit of Heroes of the Storm with you this week.
You did.
I've played maybe like 8 games so far. And so they have free characters. It's a free-to-play game, we should point out.
Sure.
And like you're saying about being a Blizzard fan, like especially because it's free-to-play, at least give it a try. That tutorial is so much fun. Right. But because it's a free-to-play game, they have rotating heroes, which is that the League model?
This is it's a fairly common model.
Okay.
It's usually free-to-play with like you said, a rotating character of heroes. So every week there'll be different free heroes. Important to note about this game is that you get 5 free heroes to start. In the rotation, but as you level up your account, there's account level unlock, so you can get 7. You get 7 free heroes after you get to like level 15 or something.
That's cool.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They unlock like more specialist slots usually.
You earn gold as you play that you can buy.
You earn gold, and there was a big problem with earning gold and like playing as a free to play player in sort of the alpha and technical stage, because I was playing like that.
Okay.
To get the full experience that anyone playing the game completely free would do, and they changed how it worked. You get lots more gold for leveling up now. So you can actually unlock a full roster, not like all the characters, but a very deep roster, enough that you can play the competitive modes without having to spend any money.
Have the archetypes and stuff already.
You can have your core building blocks plus room to spare for some of the more interesting characters that I think. And that's one thing I want to stress. I don't want to get into like all this kind of MOBA terminology like initiates and disables and all this kind of weird stuff like that, because a lot of people may not know what I'm talking about. But
Papa Reiner will fall asleep.
I agree. Yeah. One of the biggest selling points of the game for me is the characters, and not just because they do completely capture like the essence of these characters from their Blizzard games, and put them in there. But they also, because of the style of the game, I think they're willing to take way more chances with what these heroes can do, instead of just being, oh, this guy's got a stun and a teleport and a damage dealing move. They go way off course, like with some of the cool characters like Abathur. The Zerg Evolution Master from StarCraft 2.
I know he never leaves his little home.
Right,
in StarCraft
he doesn't
2.
leave base.
Like,
so obviously when the game starts, a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, we have an AFKer on our team," but he doesn't.
Right.
That's not how he plays.
Oh,
right?
I was joking about StarCraft 2, but he literally in the game cannot leave the base.
Well, he can, but he doesn't. Like he holes up in places, right? And he's like a commander. He manipulates the battle from home base pretty much. Like he'll put like buffs and other things on other characters. So if he sees 2 people fighting, he turns the tide of that battle, and then takes that off, and then goes somewhere else completely on the map with his evolutionary stuff.
Disembodied?
He's the Zerg evolution dude, like the guy you did upgrades with at StarCraft 2.
No.
Tim, that's Tim's big pile of shame is that he loves Warcraft 3 and he's never played StarCraft 2. It's the
absolutely
best
don't know.
RTS campaign.
Okay.
It's a good campaign. I will agree with
All
that.
right.
Absolutely. So yeah, he is completely out of the battle, but he can always shift the tide of a battle.
Right.
And then you have like Murky, a hilarious little Murloc who's essentially designed to die.
Yeah,
That sounds cute.
He only counts as like 25% of the experience, like when he gets killed.
sure.
So his whole mission is sort of to distract and annoy the other team.
Is his respawn timer a little more forgiving?
Right, that's the thing. So he has an
interesting.
egg that he can place anywhere on the map. And if that egg stays up, he pops back out of it like almost instantly when he dies.
Right.
So they have to find the egg and kill it in order to make him stop
that's
doing
cool.
it.
I know you hate this analogy, but
I do hate it,
Dark
and I know where you're
Souls.
going.
I like comparing it to Smash Brothers.
I know you do.
In terms of just how bold and weird they're getting with the character choices and the moves. Like, one of there's a character named Stitches. When he does a certain attack, and the entire screen is consumed by his mouth.
get-
Is
as
he like
it
an
eats you.
abomination or what?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think that's totally fair.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
seems like
because it's what it's World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and
Diablo.
Blizzard
Diablo.
and then
and extended Blizzard universe, which is
Right.
like the Lost Vikings, Blackthorn,
yeah.
Rock and Roll Racing.
Can I
Not yet, but maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I offer yet another comparison that I just have been coming on to recently?
Sure.
For helping me understand MOBAs and the penalty, when everyone dies at once, that's a huge deal in a MOBA.
Right.
Because they push lanes and they'll knock down towers and they'll make just so much progress because you're just not running that interference on them.
Right, sure.
And I think playing Splatoon has
Yes.
helped me understand a little bit because there's
100%.
this physical color-coded representation of progress that's happening on the battlefield. Their colors, the enemy's colors are expanding towards your side as you are dying, as you're dead. And then once your team gets back, you push those people back, you fight those people, you push back, you push the battle back towards the center a little bit.
100%. Like we had Brian Shea on last week to talk about Splatoon. I've played a lot of that game. Tim, I think you've played a bit.
me too.
Reiner as well.
Yep.
I love that game. I never thought I'd be into it as much as I am, but whenever I have free time, I want to play Splatoon. And this is the difference for me, Dan Tack, is the beauty of Splatoon is every second of that game, I feel like I'm making progress and helping out my team. It's literally manifested in the game world with me painting with, I always use the splat roller.
Yeah.
And so I'm just rolling
Sure.
paint consistently, no matter what. I feel like
it's
I'm-
1-to-1.
I'm helping, and I can actually be an advantage for my team. And every time I play Heroes of the Storm, I feel like I'm dragging my team down
You
in
are.
the worst way.
You are.
And you're talking about 3 minutes versus 30 minutes too.
Yeah.
So if you do feel like a drag on your team and you're blowing it in Heroes of the Storm, that's a drawn out 30-minute
No.
deal.
No way.
In Splatoon,
That a 30-minute game of Heroes of the Storm is
20?
Like
pretty
15
rare.
average?
15 to 20
Okay.
is where we're usually at.
still dramatically longer than Splatoon, but Splatoon's kind of
Yeah.
an extreme.
And I do want to touch upon this about game length and structure a little bit real fast for Heroes before I address that whole thing.
Oh, the Splatoon
yeah.
MOBA.
But how you feel like you're never making a difference in it or wherever. But
Right.
the
world.
structure, one of the coolest things that separates Heroes of the Storm from other MOBAs is that there's never any of this sort of downtime stage where the teams are farming to try to get the edge in the other one through item gain. It's always active.
Hey, really dumb question. When people talked about farming, I thought that was always just against the creep, isn't that?
Right, and jungle
Jungle, yeah.
monsters.
But there's still all that in
Right.
Heroes of the Storm.
In certain
No. There's no gold from enemies. So if you're in lane, you're getting the full XP.
But there's still experience.
there's experience, but
Okay.
you don't have to farm up to get new items. Like, a
Farming
lot
is
of
just the
times-
gold aspect, not the
Right,
experience.
to make
Okay.
your one character, they stack him up with a bunch of items so he can kill the other team by himself, more or less.
Gotcha.
With your help.
Sure.
There's none of that. There's team fights from level 1. Like there's no. That's when the action starts because you start with all your moves except your ultimate,
Right.
and they just you have the talents are sort of like they just pop up as you go.
Right.
So
right.
there's never a time in the game where it's like, oh, we better hang back and just try to get some levels. It's always action all the time, objective
Sure.
driven.
which is way more appealing to
It's super
Yeah.
someone
appealing.
like me.
Okay, so Dan
And
Tack,
as far as what you were saying about
please.
feeling like a drag on your team, I mean,
It feels terrible.
let me. You were making that choice when we were playing. Like I'll get on, I'll help you out, I'll tell you what's going on, and you're just like, no, I got it. And then you run out as okay. He's playing.
No,
as-
I got
Wait,
it.
you didn't listen to Tack's
play-
advice?
he's
Here's
playing
how
a-
it went.
hang- no, I want to tell you how it went.
Please.
He jumps in. He's like, who should I play first? I'm like, well, pick somebody who's got an easy rating. An archetype, just somebody who can take some hits, maybe dish out some damage. He's like, I'm gonna go for this hard stealth hero. So he picks a stealth hero and he just runs out right in the lane and just starts swinging.
Cool.
Like this
All
is a
right.
character that
Yeah.
needs to be hidden.
Right.
He's an assassin, strikes from the shadows. He just comes out, guns blazing, middle of the lane, dies. Oh, what am I doing? Runs right back out, does it again. And it's just like, whoa, man, settle down.
Here's my version
Pick
of that
your
story.
battles.
I won that game for us. No, here's my version of the story. Is I was like rotating through the free characters, and it's like, they're all fine. I forget who is up on the docket. I think like Arthas, stuff like that. And it's like, I really love StarCraft. That's like my favorite Blizzard franchise. And so I really wanted a StarCraft character. Like I could choose Reiner, which I played in the tutorial,
It
but
throws me off.
yeah, Andrew Reiner. But then with that, it's like everyone's picking Reiner as like their starter. So I wanted something a little bit different. And I saw Zeratul, who is a Protoss, and I think he's a really cool character.
He is a cool character.
So I was like, well, it's $10. Like, I guess this is just a little tip in Blizzard's little hat. Like, I'll give him a $10 donation so I can play as Zeratul and at least feel a little bit more of a connection than this random rotating cast.
But you weren't playing him
Now,
on
do you feel
Zeratul.
like? Oh, I was gonna say, now do you feel obligated to play that?
I'm just saying, how do you?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you play Zeratul in StarCraft 2? Do you just charge him at the enemy towers?
That's right. Yeah,
mean,
just
you
run
don't
right
do
into
that,
enemy
right?
base. No, well, I didn't know what I was doing. To be fair, and it's like
I
I
know
have
that.
2 moves, and I was trying to use Blink
Right,
a little
right.
bit more throughout the course of the game, but it was just like with 2 moves, I can only do so much. And
Hang on,
Dan's like,
hang
you're
on.
blowing it with the way you're using
'Cause
2
it's not-
moves.
It's not about using 2 moves. There's a lot more going on. It's more nuanced than that. There's positioning is extremely important for a stealth character, and so is like when you pick your battles.
Sure.
So what you should have been doing, we were in the same lane, right? So I was just watching you. I got to witness this hilarity.
You were Sergeant
You
Hammer.
should have been helping out.
I was Sergeant Hammer. I know. So what he should have waited to do was wait for me to go up as Sergeant Hammer.
Yeah.
Wait for them to start beating on me because I'm a really big target as a siege tank,
Right.
right? And I'm really bad in melee range and I'm gonna get killed fast. So as soon as they jump me, he can come out from behind and just start
Right.
stabbing away with those Protoss blades, right?
And to be fair, Dan wanted to get on Skype, but I wanted to
did.
listen to podcasts while I was playing, so I chose not to Skype.
Ben, you didn't do that.
I did do that.
Ben,
He did.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If I learned one thing in my time playing Heroes of the Storm, and it's
Yeah.
probably most representative of my most earnest attempt to understand a MOBA,
Sure.
is that, well, 1, you get on Skype. 2, you should try to find some people you know that are interested in learning the
Definitely.
game or know it. 3, you should do every damn thing they say. Because through
Right.
doing everything that they say, that's how I, 1, learned the flow of the game, and 2, learned how to play like Diablo. I was making Diablo like my kind of like introductory character.
To be fair,
sure.
Diablo is much easier to play than the character.
Yeah,
they
that's the
start
thing. It was
with.
a
Yeah.
conscious choice. I'm like, well, who's?
Right.
I looked at
Right.
his skill set. I'm like, he looks kind of tanky. He's not going to be as squishy. I feel like I can like
He can
be
really get
clumsy
in there.
and do some
Yeah.
damage.
Right. Plus, he
Who
looks
are the-
hilarious when he's riding a horse. That's true.
Who are the starting 5 guys that you get?
It's a rotation.
rotates.
Oh, so it's
But
they're full base,
it's
but
usually
then you
it's a
get-
good mix
Yeah.
of of archetypes, so you're never like struggling to find someone to play. And I believe, I don't know this because I started way back in Alpha. I believe now you get a free character to start as well of your choice.
I mean, it's not as high of a barrier as I thought it would be as far as purchasing new characters with the in-game currency.
That becomes this becomes a lot easier as you play.
Right.
Every time you level up, you get more gold.
Can you
So-
talk about the overall progression? Like, you start out with this game.
Yeah.
What can you do? What unlocks as you continue?
Sure. Okay. So that's actually this is another point of the game. It has every level of engagement for every kind of person who might want to play this kind of game ever, from the most casual of casual
Right.
to the competitive, 5v5 games.
And then above that, the Dan Tack.
I don't play in 5v5 right now. I'm just playing the straight up ranked play.
Cool.
So
he's retired.
yeah, I'm retired. No, so you can play against bots with bots. So just complete practice rounds by yourself. Just hang out, have a good time, learn moves.
Podcast.
Those are your podcast ones. Otherwise, probably pause the podcast.
That way you don't need to pay attention to everything. And for the ones where you don't want to, I play a lot of games not on Skype or with voice chat either. But those are the people who know not to run out in the center of a lane with a stealth hero.
You know how to play.
Right.
That's the difference
Yeah.
there.
So then you have an option to play with other players against bots. A lot of people just stick to that mode.
Sure.
I mean, you can get full credit for that. You'll still get your gold levels and everything.
Right. It's not quite
It's not
as
exact.
fun. I think
I agree. It's not fun.
I saw those games as kind of like a testing ground before we try and get like a team with like Tim and I and you on there and like other people that are trying to learn in the office, which seems like the way to go.
We really should do that.
Yeah,
and then
we
we
should give
have
that a go.
after that we have quick match,
Sure.
which is the basic versus mode. So there's no drafting phase or any bans or none of that stuff.
Right.
It's just you pick a character. Both teams can have a copy of the character. So if 2 teams want to play Kalthos, that's cool.
I've heard some people
You don't know what. There's more.
Okay,
You
I know,
don't
I
know
know.
what map you're playing on yet. So you'll never really know that. You can't really plan for that. You really don't know your teammates unless you're matching up with friends.
And isn't that frustrating for people who have a lot of familiarity with MOBAs to go in blind, both on the map and the objective and who their teammates are and who they're fighting? That's such a crucial part of MOBAs, right?
The objective is known when you get on the map. So that's
But not until you choose your character.
right. If you're
Well, there
looking
are
for
map objectives.
right.
Yeah.
He's saying that you don't if he wants to tailor his character to the map.
Exactly.
And that's we'll talk about that. And then quick match really isn't for that. Quick match is
Sure.
like good times. Who cares?
Right.
Play whoever you want because you won't have to worry about a draft phase. Then next up in the ranking is Hero League, which is what I play, which is a draft phase. So if a hero gets picked, if the other team takes Sylvanas, our team can't have a Sylvanas.
Sure.
And we also know the map ahead of time. And because we can see all the picks, we can say, our team could really use a support. Do you have a good support you could play? And it's like, yeah, I do. I'm really good at support. Oh, really cool. Awesome. You should play one.
So, but you have to grind for a while before you can get to the level that most MOBA players are used to having.
You do have to play. I don't know exactly how long it is. Sure.
Sure.
But
I think it's
10,000 hours, like Michael Jordan.
It is certainly not 10. It is not 10,000
Oh, okay.
hours. I think it's a lot less than you think.
I don't know what.
And I'm gonna stop right now. I'll stop here so Reiner can actually jump in because I've been talking about modes way too much.
Yeah, why is it called League? Is this kind of like, now that it's officially out there, what is there? Is there leagues, tournaments? What kind of things do you have?
So the league thing, you rank up as you play. So you win points when you win a game, you lose points when you lose a game based on the matchmaking rating of your opponents and your teammates. So it's basically going up and down a ladder.
Gotcha.
1v1 match of Heroes of the Storm. Does it exist?
I don't think. Maybe you could pull it off in a custom game.
Okay.
I don't know that it does exist.
Now,
no.
if it did exist, and it was Joseph Stalin versus Michael Jordan, what class would they play, and who do you think would win that match?
Wow.
Do either of
I
them
can't
have like
even
a
fathom.
paint roller as a weapon either?
They're playing Splatoon, I meant to say. Yeah.
That sounds like it. Yeah. I'd have a good match there.
Okay.
Perfect. Sorry, Dan, but what's above Hero League? Then?
No, and then above Hero League, you have the final game mode, which is Team League, which is preset 5v5. So that's you can't go in there solo. You got to go in there with an arranged team.
Okay.
So that's the most serious mode.
Gotcha. Are there any things, since you've played so much of this game, where you can see the simplicity kind of backfiring? Or are there any areas that you're worried about in the future as far as lack of complexity?
No. In fact, I didn't realize. I think it took me a while to realize that there was this kind of complexity. I was also at the point where it's like, man, this is just. I don't know if I'm getting all the complexity here. And then once I started playing Hero League and started seeing more advanced strategies and more advanced teamwork, it is about the teamwork, and that is also the one point that I can see that other players coming from other MOBAs might have a problem with, and that is that it is so team reliant that you can't really be the shooting star. If everyone on the team plays good, you're going to win. But you'll never be like the hero.
You're saying that you don't have that time in the spotlight.
I'm saying you
that
will
some
never
people
be
might
like
thirst after.
Well, everyone on my team was 2 people on my team were really terrible, but I pulled it off for the team.
Right.
There's no spotlight like you pulled it off.
Yeah.
It's everyone working together and coming together as a team. And it's some people might really like playing the aspect like
I want glory.
if my team is bad, I'm so good that I can carry them to victory.
Right.
That's not going to happen here.
Right.
So it is laser focus on team play.
I feel like that should probably help maybe downplay some of the crazy, like we were talking about, like the toxic environment where you have like one person who's just carries every team he's ever on, and he's always just like rubbing it in everyone's face and expects them to be superhuman at it. Do you feel like that helps with that?
Well, see, that is an actual viable method of play in other MOBAs. That's they're constructed like some teams are constructed just around.
Right.
This guy is our carry, because he carries the team. All of our time is spent supporting him and making sure that he gets all the items. We're creating space for him to get a victory. And again, so that doesn't really exist in this game.
Right.
So individual skill, I think, matters less, but team play matters just as much.
Sure.
How would a carry, like if a NFL team was going to try to have a carry, what would the real world application of that be if they were going to try to make a carry?
That's I guess,
Also, if they're playing
Adrian
Pikmin
Peterson.
2.
Yeah,
Just
running
like-
back.
Yeah.
Oh, just like I'm thinking, just like special amulets and stuff, and just like some kick-ass
That's what Adrian
boots.
Peterson has.
Right.
Is that, okay, all right.
That's how he
He's
does
got
it.
a moonstone. Yeah, he rocks that all the time.
They grinded for a moonstone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, Dan, now that I have you on this podcast,
You do.
I really
You
want to
do,
pick your
Ben.
brain about a certain topic.
I
with
bet you do.
It's the most fascinating thing about you. And I think our previous PC
wow.
editor, Adam Biesner, also had this a little bit.
Okay.
How are you so constantly caught up in like the precise, correct strategy in so many different games?
I'm not.
But you're always
you're within the office for
Yeah.
sure. You're an authority on so many complicated games.
Bloodborne, I mean, Hearthstone. I'm sure you've played Hatred, so many other games. People are always asking for
God.
advice. I mean, do you just go home over the weekends and just read like deep forums about strategies and everything?
He's just
No,
playing the games.
I get in
right?
there and play
Yeah.
the games, yeah.
So you recommend playing the games?
Yeah, I know it's a crazy thing.
I think
I hate guides. Like, I completely abhor them. I
Right.
enjoy going through games and like discovering stuff for myself.
What about spiritual guides?
Those two, Ben.
Okay.
Especially yours.
But I mean, Tim plays a lot of Bloodborne, and he knows a lot about Bloodborne. But
He does.
I think you would even agree that Dan Tack's like confidence in strategy is on another level.
Well, I think it's admirable and startling that you can come out of playing, nothing but Bloodborne for like better part of a week. If I'm referencing your review Hermitage, And you come out on the other end of it, there was no guides or anything available.
No.
There was nothing besides like a very like minor, like review primer thing, like basics of the game. Stuff that you get in like almost a manual. But you come out on the other end of it with just this like, oh, I've seen the light. I've seen through to the other side, and I can guide you there, Tim.
Well,
You said
judging
to
from
me.
the quality of the disc, it looks like he actually tried to eat the disc
was
itself
a-
to try
If
and
you're-
get the
if you're
game's
That was
content.
actually a different PS4 incident.
But what I'm saying is that like you were working in it blind, and you knew like, oh well, you need this many umbilical cords, and if this lady will not appear here, you just came out of it knowing this stuff, and there was no way for you to like research it. You just played it that way. I'm curious.
You had a moment of panic, and I remember that you sent me a text.
I
where you were
did. Oh,
freaking
Reiner
out,
loves this.
saying that it's way harder than Dark Souls, and you're getting your butt handed to you, and then like miraculously the next day, you're like finished it. Credits rolling. I was like,
once
holy
that
crap.
yeah, once that barrier was down, actually things kind of so it really was about changing my gameplay up and just
Talking about Gascoigne?
yeah.
So wait,
He was a roadblock for me for
after
sure.
Gascoigne, you beat it in like a day?
It was like 2
like-
days, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
pretty quick.
That's another part of this whole thing. I think if I had to guess, is it because you're drawn to really complicated, like you're drawn to games that have intricate pieces,
Right.
And there's a lot of moving parts in it. And since you play a lot of games like that, maybe that makes you better at thinking about those kinds of games in a different way. Like, and then you also do play a good amount of games, so like it just all builds on. And you're a smart guy, so there's that.
So what is the base question?
We wanna
The
know
base
why-
question is,
Why are you so smart?
Yeah, how are you so good at analyzing the layout of a game and different features and number crunching, everything like that? And
I don't know that I am.
okay,
to be
well,
honest with you.
The humility aside,
yeah, I thought of you because this week I've been playing Massive Chalice, which is
Sure.
Double Fine's new game, which the easy pitch is that it's fantasy XCOM, except it takes place over 300 years. So your characters age and die off, and it's a lot about different bloodlines, and
they procreate.
there's a lot of procreating, a lot of adopting children. It's really just a family fest in that thing. But I've been doing a terrible job of playing it, and I just wish I had that kind of mind that can look at a complex, and this people even bag this game for being too simple, but just a strategy game like that and being like, okay. It's like you just have this laser focus of this goes here, this if I interact with that, those numbers are better than this number. Like, I'm so jealous of that level of comprehension that people
You're
like you have.
overthinking things, is what I think. You find the easiest thing to do and then you exploit it.
Interesting. That's a
You
good first
find
step.
There are some people that analyze things and strategize, and then others with just a paint roller. And
So-
I think you're the paint roller, man.
Sometimes the
man.
answer is easy. Sometimes it's just you just need a
Yeah.
bigger hammer, man.
You want to jack into the Matrix, but really, just cheese something until you win.
Well, it's not ju-
Like
I mean,
Cypher did.
If I'm trying to simplify it, yeah, it's not about being cheesy, but it's about finding a strategy that works.
Sure.
Without having to like crunch numbers. We're just saying like,
Right.
I hit this thing with a sword, it didn't do any damage. Let me try the hammer. Oh, the hammer killed it. Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's that kind of deep thought.
Yeah. So
But some of the conversations I've had with you, Dan, you have talked about like going through the forums for Bloodborne, people
after the
rolling
fact, absolutely.
vitality. Yeah,
Sure.
Obviously, none of that stuff existed beforehand, but you do a lot of research on what people are doing, what trends are there.
Absolutely.
So you are staying up on it outside of the games too.
Sure, absolutely.
What do you want to shout out any of your favorite forums?
I do spend a lot of time on NeoGAF.
All right.
oh,
So-
perfect.
That's a
There
good
we
one.
go.
Yeah.
So Dan,
And definitely Reddit. Lots of Reddit.
you said that you wanted to start playing Massive Chalice. It seems up your
I
alley.
do. I've
Okay.
been really busy with some other great titles.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. Like, it's had one of the most open game development periods of all time.
And I-
really.
and I
And
think
coming from
that's-
Double Fine, that's really rare for them to be so transparent.
I
about
know
the
it's the
game.
new Double Fine model, but even
Yeah.
like beyond what Broken Age's strategy was for just revealing the actual process, like they have streamed every week or every other week, like nitty gritty Excel spreadsheets just showing like the budget of the game, absolutely everything. It was their second big Kickstarter. It made like just over $1 million, and I was following it in the very early days because Two Player Productions, like the video team over there, were putting together a lot of kind of more broad, interesting conceptual design meetings videos. And then I kind of lost track with the streams because I don't really follow Twitch too much. But it was fun to watch it in that early period. And then Tim, you and I visited Double Fine
Right.
in the middle of its development, and now I get to play the finished product, and it's like, it's that perfect level. But going back to the original conception, I just want to give a plug for this awesome video that they released right when the Kickstarter succeeded. They had like one early design meeting And then they actually Skyped in Jake Solomon, who's a lead designer on XCOM Enemy Unknown over at Firaxis. And it's basically them trying to get some free consultation without paying for it and just being like, this is what we're thinking of doing. Like, tell us if we're going to blow it. And it's just this great, candid design conversation that's an hour long with Jake clearly being super excited about the concept of this game. And it's so fun to see a developer be so blatant with, we're trying to do what XCOM did. Like, we're basically trying to make an XCOM clone, and the person who designed the XCOM reboot just loves it and supports it fully.
I mean, I think that must be a case where like Jake Solomon grew up a fan of. In many ways, they're making a new XCOM game, but Jake Solomon's just making a game based off the original XCOM.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah, so
they come from the same tree.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess it could be that.
It's such a weird game because when you boot it up, it is like straight fantasy, and it's like about this kingdom and all this, and you're like, this doesn't seem like a Double Fine production.
Right.
But then all of a sudden there's this giant chalice in like the throne room.
Right. I just don't
and it looks like a fountain. And you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then it starts talking and it has like two voices. You're like, okay, that's clearly Double Fine now.
Oh,
this is super weird.
I didn't realize that was a big part of.
It is. It's kind of like your tutorial is the like the two people,
the
two voices of the
illusion
chalice.
thing.
Yeah, will actually communicate with you. But something that makes it a little Double Fine-y, which I loved out of the gate, which I've never really seen in another game, is you have an option on the same screen where you select the difficulty, whether or not you want Iron Man mode, all that type of stuff. They have an option for the family names because there's so many different family names in here. And you have the option of choosing serious, silly, or a mix of both. Because it pulled a lot from Kickstarter backers. So if you don't want like the Boner family, you can cut that out and just have it be like the Regathals or something a little more regal. But I definitely went for mix.
The Boner family, ironically, stricken with impotence. Just can't procreate at all.
That is actually a factor in the game. Not that one specifically. Low fertility, at least.
Yeah,
I find out why you're having trouble in the game, Ben. It's because you're playing as the Boner family.
Oh, I see. Speaking of Boner families, I did actually come across a family and a character named Mike Futter. Apparently, he backed this game. I also backed it, but apparently he backed it, and his name is in there. He's a Caberjack. And let's see, which is a class.
Caberjack has like they hit people with
tree
trees,
sword?
pretty much.
Yeah, just like this big brute frontline type of guy. But I think like he was ignorant was like his trait because every character has their own stats and then certain defining traits like nearsightedness or there's a really fun one which is like optimism is a trait, which means that every hit percentage you see on the battlefield, the reality is that it's lower than that.
Right.
But when that character's playing it, they see like a 95% chance
That's
they're going to
pretty
hit
good.
that. It's so smart.
Well,
but
back up a
go
second.
ahead.
So people that backed it got to pick all these traits about themselves? for the
No,
character?
I don't think they choose it.
okay.
They just submitted their name into the thing, and then the traits
get
are
random
randomized.
pricing,
But
okay.
part of the fun then is marrying different families within them, and they become regents for different keeps. It's all very Game of Thronesy, and so you try and intermarry certain families and certain people so that they have the best possible traits. Reeves in his review called it like a eugenics simulator. I know there's a negative connotation for eugenics, but it actually is.
And it's like 30 families. Like there's a ton of different banners in that game.
Yeah, it's really a lot of content in there. So basically, it is the best idea for a game. Like when we were visiting Double Fine, like there's just so many things like, oh, what about this? What about this? Where your mind just races with different.
Double Fine game.
Exactly.
Oh.
And that strategy level, I think, is really fun. I'm having a really tough time with the actual tactical combat, though, because they modeled it so much after XCOM Enemy Unknown, but it was such a smaller team with such a smaller budget that it's just less refined. And to have a game that's so close to a game that I love like XCOM, but not control the same, it's like it's just frustratingly similar, but not as satisfying.
So it seems like the strategy layer is very cool.
Right.
With the family marrying and stuff like that.
Right.
And then the tactical layer, it seems like it's falling a little bit short for you.
That's where I'm at now. It also is that I'm really, really bad at tactics. But
Okay.
just as far as
It's cool. Just get on
If
Skype.
you listen, if the sword doesn't work, hit him with the hammer.
right. No, literally.
The deep.
Yeah.
I chose like the medium difficulty, and I have had team wipes every round except for the tutorial.
You're on your way.
It's rough, so I'm gonna have to go down to the lower difficulty just to try and make it through
There's
this game.
no shame in that.
So
I gotta try this game.
So the
Yeah.
first attack where there's the two that show up.
Right, that one I made it through.
Okay, that's
then-
the second one then.
Then everything else, it's a bunch of rookies, and so then I just have to wait and like try and recruit some more heroes, which takes like 10 years in the game time because it's very XCOM or Civ where you're kind of like going through and choosing the research you want.
But more extreme than that, there's a timeline up top, and it's going
Right.
through years, like super
That's
fast.
it.
So you see this big kind of timer.
Is it every
go
every
across.
turn or something like that?
No, it's not. It's just in the strategy layer. It's not the tactics layer.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
and it's-
basically, you set your research and then you hit fast forward and it'll go through the years.
Oh.
And what you're researching is a lot like XCOM, but you're building like keeps and stuff like that. So you actually kind of see it going up in real time according to their world, as
Okay.
this clock's going.
It's like the Game of Thrones intro.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Pretty much is exactly that.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And
with-
even the visuals are similar in design.
Huh.
yeah, I guess they kind of are. Reeves really didn't like the way that it looked. Ben Reeves reviewed it for us. He gave it an 8. You can read his review on our
That's
site.
fair.
Yeah, but he called
Fair
the
score.
art style deflated paper mache,
He did.
which is a little bit.
I really
Rude,
like
I
the
think.
art style.
It's
actually.
interesting. Yeah, I like the way the world looks more than the characters specifically, I guess. But I feel like it's the type of game where all those fun family dynamics and like creating this legacy and like your favorite family and fighting like with the grandson alongside the grandpa and all that stuff that
That's
can
cool.
happen. It's one of those games that you really have to read and like kind of invest more than you'd think from yourself into like paying attention to, okay, this family acts a certain way, and just reading the names and trying to memorize like, okay, this person on the battlefield, might not look that different, but I need to remember them because it'll make the strategy layer more interesting. Does that make sense?
So you're saying it's hard to keep track of what those characters in the tactical level will do to the strategy level? Like it's easy to forget what their greater impact is? Or are you talking
I
about
guess
like
so.
the role playing you're trying to do?
I guess just trying to build up like those stories in your heads about the different family dynamics. Like,
Oh, so role playing.
I guess so. Yeah.
That's
you're
where-
not
that's,
as
that's how
connected.
you're doing it wrong. You need to just forget all that.
Min-max.
Just- Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, since you have so many different pieces, you're not as connected as you are to your like small core team from XCOM.
That's exactly it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, where you really understand those. Whereas here, it's like you have to keep track of all the different keeps that you have and who's in there, how old they are. Like, do they have kids? I think that kid I sent over to that other keep, that type of thing. But if you want to invest that mind share into that, some amazing things can come out of this game. So I'm enjoying it so far. But
It's worth a look, and
I'm
it's-
looking forward
it's-
to playing it.
yeah,
It's a Games with Gold game for Xbox
That's
One
true,
right
yeah.
now.
Oh,
is
so
it?
it's free. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
yeah. So it's also on
No brainer.
PC.
Just like Heroes
Yeah.
of the Storm. No brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I was watching like their latest stream, and in that they addressed the idea of it coming to other consoles, and I was worried that it was like a full exclusive for Microsoft, but they made it seem like eventually, if it does well, it's going to come to other systems as well. So.
I want to take a moment to think about. Do you remember when that Kickstarter was funded? The Massive Chalice one.
Oh man, maybe
It's a fair point. I know where
Yeah.
you're going.
it was right around when they announced the split that Broken Age was going to be in 2 acts.
Oh, right,
So
'cause that-
2 years ago, maybe.
But just the fact that they got that game out when they did, like just a couple months after Broken Age Act 2,
Right.
crazy.
man, it's nuts. I'm wondering if they learned a lot from Broken Age Act
Could
2.
be.
and
Yeah,
just-
and it's a really ambitious game. It doesn't
or
have
Broken Age in general.
right. It doesn't have the kind of intense art that Broken Age seemed to have, which really kind of slowed down the
That's
process.
True, and the story is more it's more emergent than
Right.
it is like a focused, in-depth narrative.
definitely.
So
But it's interesting that this game was released on the same day that they announced XCOM 2
mm.
Oh yeah,
for
it's a game.
Axis, which
Yeah.
I love that they just called it XCOM 2. That's so awesome.
I want to be.
What's wrong with that?
No, I love it. I
It's
think it's
fantastic.
great.
There's no subtitle or anything.
No.
enemy this or enemy that.
None of that. Enemy this, enemy that.
Well, there's enemy unknown.
They got to
and
save
enemy
that for
within.
the expansion,
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually Frenemy Unknown.
I'm really excited for XCOM 2, but there's a part of me inside that's just intensely guilty because I made it through XCOM once.
Yeah.
And I didn't play it on super hyper difficulty or permadeath mode. I didn't play Enemy Within, even though I thought it had some really cool ideas, because that first experience was so exhausting and difficult
Oh, yeah.
for me that I think I'm somewhere in the same boat with Ben, where like I'm not amazing at tactical stuff, but maybe I'm a little better than Ben. I don't know. But anyway,
modest.
it's just one of those things where I see like, oh, here's more XCOM. And like, I feel like I barely made it through that first one alive, and I don't
Right.
deserve to play this.
To the
second
point that
game.
you didn't play Enemy Within.
I didn't.
Yeah. I started Enemy Within, which is the expansion that came out a year later, and it was like, oh, it's the exact same sectoid animations. I've seen that 6,000 times.
It's like you
Right.
need space, and right now it may be the time that I'd be ready to play XCOM
Right.
Enemy Within again. But no, oh,
Well, that's what Massive Chalice
Yeah,
is for.
just go,
Yeah.
just get in there, roll up on Iron Man, and
Yeah.
Piece of
do
cake,
it to
man.
it. Yeah.
So XCOM 2, IGN has the exclusive on it. It's one of those IGN first type things. But some details about it is it's really interesting because it takes place years down the road from the first XCOM, and it's as if the game that you lost of XCOM, that is the canon. And so XCOM as a unit crumbles, and then the world is taken over by aliens. They've created like this advanced kind of hybrid alien culture, and you're just this renegade group. That's the new XCOM, just guerrilla fighters that go in and try and attack them.
I like the idea of them just deciding a canon based on like, you won, but you didn't. It's like, like Metal Gear, like deciding,
to just choose both.
Yeah, you got both, or Resident Evil 1, where it's like, no, everyone escaped in the helicopter. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like this ragtag group and kind of building up that base. They're adding new classes and everything like that, but I worry that it's going to lose some of the tension with the idea of XCOM. You're always kind of on the defense. You see like a UFO crash, you go in there, you don't know where the aliens are. The idea of like this time around, it's much more you're on the offense, you're attacking the alien cities. And so I don't know if it's going to have that same level of tension.
I think you still won't know where enemies are.
I guess so, yeah. On the actual map. Like it's just the story context, but then the way you're actually, as Jake Solomon in that Massive Chalice video put it, popping pods, like exploring the map, like when you encounter the pods of aliens, that's what they call it.
Okay.
Yeah, all they really did is turn the tables, right? Like
Right.
it used to be humans and now it's aliens. You just in reverse roles.
Right.
But the thing that worries me the most is they're doing randomized enemy placements and procedural map generation.
Well, the enemy placements I think are always random. Yeah, procedural map generation. That's the big thing.
And the big thing about the last game was, I mean, those levels were so finely tuned with where the enemies were, where they're going to pop out.
Right.
Who's to say that they just won't all appear in one cluster or in unfair spots, depending on how you kind of roll in there?
I guess I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I know they tried to do procedural maps on the first one, then they gave up because it was just way too hard. So I'm curious how they've evolved over at
Who they
Firaxis.
hired.
Yeah, maybe to like figure out how they can nail procedural maps. But it's exciting because I mean, as many maps as there were in Enemy Unknown, I still have seen all of them multiple times at this point.
Yeah, well, their track record shows that they can definitely handle the challenge.
Yeah.
I'm excited as hell for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm too. It's a super awesome release, but it's only on PC.
Reiner hates this.
So they made they made the right choice.
Well, okay, you roll out the red carpet to everyone on tablet, on console, and you're like, we have this new direction for a game. It's redesigned XCOM. It's for everyone. Come play. Everyone loved it. Console players, PC, tablet. Everybody raved about every version. This sequel is in the same vein. It is identical in its like makeup,
Sure.
to a degree.
Right.
PC only.
I just don't remember what the
Well, I
sales
guess
were
it's
like.
time to get a new rig, Reiner.
I mean, we don't
Well,
know.
no,
the sales.
I mean it's not just me. I mean, I just think it's like you open these doors for people and then you just immediately shut it with the sequel.
They're not shut. PCs are very affordable and a great way to play
That's
games.
true.
If you think about XCOM's if you think of XCOM and like even Firaxis' like core demographic, like you're looking at PC games, and then on top of that, maybe the PC version sold better than the rest. The rest were all well received, but maybe the PC version didn't maybe it sold well enough that like we could just save so much money by not going to other consoles.
That must be what it is. And it's like you come up with all these reasons like, oh, maybe the interface is so different that they can't make it work for consoles, yada, yada, yada. But really the core of it is if it sold more on consoles, of course they would be releasing it on consoles. But I think it just had such a long, healthy tail on Steam with Steam sales over time. Like I'm sure it sold somewhat similar to the way a Civ game sold, where it's always like, yeah, I've always been meaning to get that. There's no reason I shouldn't pick this up.
Right.
It's the Firaxis way.
And I'm not trying to say that I don't want it to be on consoles. I think I played it on PC, but with an Xbox 360 controller.
Right, and that's also a debate. Like maybe controllers won't be supported. I don't know.
I hope.
Yeah,
they
I think
do.
the way the enemies move or the characters move now is very different.
Sure.
But I'm just thinking of a world where like so many games, how many games that lived on consoles for the longest time just died because just focusing on PC only wasn't an option. They couldn't just go to PC where development costs seem to be like the most cost effective. Developers.
So before we needed the consoles, now you're saying PC is so strong they don't need it anymore?
Well, all I'm saying is like better on PC than not at all. If it started as a PC as a console game, only, then I doubt you'd ever see something jump to PC and be PC only after that. So I just imagine a world where we wouldn't have gotten it if like at all.
Yeah, definitely.
And also there's going to be all sorts of mod tools and stuff like that in the game, which very much speaks to the PC, being able to use a keyboard and mouse, being able to type stuff in and all that stuff.
But hey, Reiner, speaking of fun PC games, at least I'm playing on a PC, you are here, not only because we love you dearly as a friend and as a lovely boss, but because you played Game of Thrones Episode 4.
Yes.
The Telltale game.
Yes.
What'd you think of that one? How do you think this whole thing's shaping up?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, I'm a little bummed with what's going on in the whole HBO series, in that they're going beyond the books, and it's starting to feel
Wait,
a little bit.
You knew that was going to happen.
What happened with Walking Dead? Like,
I hate that you're being so stubborn about this, Reiner. Like
Wait, they
everybody
could stall for what? For 5 years? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
why not?
let's talk about something for a second.
Without
I wanna talk about
spoilers,
something
without
with you.
spoilers.
No. No spoilers whatsoever.
Sure.
Yeah, you get it.
What's a beautiful thing to appreciate, like transmedia sort of like things like The Walking Dead, like the game, but mostly the comic book and the show.
Sure.
It's like start off like identical paths, and then at some point they veer off in their own directions, and you get two versions of the thing that you love to like experience. And like I
Right.
feel like Game of Thrones is like, I'm gonna watch this show. I really enjoy the show. I haven't read any of the books. And I see this character, that character, this fate, that death, this person prospers. I can go and read the books and experience something completely different. And I like that.
That's great. I don't.
Why don't you like that?
I mean, Martin
Like what I
ruined
like.
it because Martin told them what happens.
gosh.
Yeah.
So it's
because he
not
had to.
No, he didn't.
Otherwise,
they could
we
go a
might
different
never-
direction.
What?
They could have Bran riding dragons and all that
Oh
stuff.
my gosh! What? No.
I think you're just being stubborn and not wanting to keep up with the show. I think if you just let that go and realize, like, yeah, it's a little bit Martin's fault. He didn't crank this stuff out fast enough. Therefore, the super popular thing, the widely more popular thing, has caught up. They've got to do something. Those actors are aging faster than you could possibly imagine.
They still have like a good 20, 30 years.
They're trying.
That's how long it's going to take to get the books out there.
Bran's
so.
been divorced 3 times.
That's true.
I just think you need to give in
No,
and
it's
just
like
accept
Star
it.
Wars. It's the Star Wars debate. It's like, expanded universe.
Wait a minute.
They
this is-
destroyed it. They nuked the entire thing.
Just
Right.
because it's not canon doesn't mean that you don't get to enjoy it.
Yes, they burned all those books.
Oh
They're
my
all
gosh, they
gone.
did?
They
Oh
went
my
into every
gosh.
house and eliminated them.
Oh my gosh.
But
No, I hear what you're saying
Okay.
on that. I definitely do, but it's just, I think it's disappointing that I started with the books and I experienced the show in a very different way because I came from having this lore from the books and seeing it as, oh, that's interesting how they did that.
Right.
But now I'm like, wait, they put that person in a different role to
Yeah, I
set up
get it.
something I don't even know what
so
it
it's
is.
just a flip-flopping of the canon where before it was so strict, like books
Yeah,
are
so
canon,
now-
show is deviation. Now it's like, rip.
Yeah, and now when I go back to the books, if I'm watching the show, it's going to be like, whoa, this is a
Wait,
completely different thing.
Are you worried about the show now influencing his books, or
A little, yeah, and just not having the connection I did before. Like I experienced it in a very different way for 4 seasons, and now it's different.
This,
It-
this
people
sounds,
change,
this, sound,
Reiner.
this sounds a lot like I liked Game of Thrones before it was cool.
I think
this
that's what it
sounds
is.
like.
I think it's a stubbornness within you, Reiner.
anyway, the game.
The
So the
game
game-
fits within the show's canon.
The game is a part of the BS show's canon, in that
It's pronounced HBO.
I was just
oh,
going to make that
sorry,
joke.
I thought it was BS.
I was just-
It follows the House Forester, which is mentioned once, I believe, in a sentence in the books.
Right, like they make wood over there. That
they make the ironwood, right?
Right.
For all the armies and all that stuff, all the houses across the land. And the series so far, the first 3 episodes that are out there, has just been brutal to this family in
Sure.
true George R.R. Martin form.
The first episodes, I just played that for the first time.
Oh, did
last
you?
night.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good.
Yeah, but Reiner's absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean,
If
these
the
people,
first episode's any indication.
yeah,
Yeah.
they are just getting beaten down, and then the 4th episode hits, and it's like, okay, maybe they finally get on the offensive a little bit. So you start to see
Yeah.
it. Those first 3 episodes made it feel like it was kind of the end of days for this family, and we're just seeing this really
Right.
drawn out, horrible thing.
Well, no wonder you hadn't heard of them. It's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now it's starting to get this kind of that Game of Thrones feel. I know that's kind of weird to say, but you're
Yeah.
starting to see the jockeying of the kingdoms and the families, and you don't really know what's going to happen here. So I think that was a really smart move on their part to
Yeah.
kind of flip the table.
I don't know if I'm as optimistic. I'm caught up on it too. I feel like with the 4th episode, yeah, they kind of stand up a little bit, but it's not as if like now this family is on the offensive.
Well, this is interesting though, because it's choice driven,
Right.
and that's stuff we can't really go into here.
It's
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not even going to come close. But there were some big events in the first episode that I walked out of. I'm like, I think that would have happened anyway. I bet.
Yeah.
I bet the big moments, like just in the same
Right.
as the show.
The big moment at the end of the first episode totally happens no matter what.
And in order to have
Right.
a water cooler moment like they do in the show, you need to have some sort of bottlenecks. But I don't know. Do you feel like your choices are coming back around on you by the 4th episode?
A little, but there's things I did in the 4th episode that I thought were really different for the characters, especially Mira.
Right.
I'll try to keep this spoiler free, but through those first 3 episodes, she was very much being defensive, dealing with Cersei Lannister.
She's the one
Tyrion.
that's in King's Landing. Basically, the family splits off a lot
Right.
like the Starks, and they're all over the world.
Yeah, and it follows the different characters, just like the books or the
Sure.
show. It bounces from character to character.
All the voice
But-
actors.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
Peter Dinklage, all of them are there. But Mira, when you first saw her, it was just kind of like, okay, she's in a really bad position, and then all of a sudden at this party, for a big spoiler thing that happens in the show,
Right.
in this 4th episode, she's just like a completely different character. She's like picking on the bad guy and just kind of throwing information at him. He goes like storming out, and you're just like,
Right.
this just kind of came out of nowhere.
Like the tone
Right.
changed.
yeah,
Like,
and it was like, okay, she's on top now. Like,
was it because that like the way you were playing her didn't gel with what the story wanted to happen?
I think, and that's where I'm
be.
kind of curious because you had different choices there, but I just went for the one like, yeah, just tell them about this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she does it in a way where she's being really kind of cocky.
Yeah, I
Right.
had a few of those in the first episode where I was just like, God, that's not how I didn't mean for you to say that.
Right,
like
right.
that.
And then another character, Roderick,
Broderick named him Broderick.
Yes, I thought about that the
Sorry,
entire
it's an
time.
obscure clickhole joke.
throughout the series so far, he has just been, seriously bloodied the entire series.
He's my favorite character.
And then in this one, he's like doing like Jedi training and like, he's on his feet and he's like confident and he goes right after the heart of the demon.
Have I
Right.
seen that guy yet in the first episode?
Yeah,
He's mentioned.
Don't spoil. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's mentioned.
Spoilers.
A little bit.
But but it's, I don't know. It just feels like it was a turning for this family. And I thought
Sure.
that was really cool to see that where they are
Yeah.
now kind of in a different position. Maybe not so much on the offensive, but they
Yeah.
are in a different position than they were in before. And all bets are kind of off.
It's nice to have some change because I feel like I liked the first episode a fair amount, but basically where things leave off after the first episode, like I don't think much has changed for this family from the second, third, and fourth. I feel like the first has definitely been the highlight for me, and these other ones have been okay. And it's not just a matter of crazy stuff is happening. Like I just want some progression to happen. It's like everyone's slowly inching forward. I guess it's a little bit like season 5 of Game of Thrones, but
Just because it's fresh, I think that first episode is like a must play for Game of Thrones fans. If you're a
Right.
fan of the show, there's some dull moments in the middle, but
Sure.
the highs are really make up for it. Like I just got caught up. I got caught up as of this last Monday, and
With
I
the
just-
show.
With the show, and I just kind of wanted some more, and I sat down
Yeah.
with that in mind and experienced a range of emotions. One of which was like when it kicks into the show's title sequence, and it's like, oh, they're going for this, and you're just like, oh, this is rough.
it looks
Yeah.
It's like
so
chopping.
rough.
Yes, it's like, oh my gosh, this looks like it was.
But the music's just still booming
It-
like it's the same
and
thing.
It looks like the
yeah.
like the Jurassic Park, sort of like the control systems 3D.
Oh,
graphics.
Unix? Yeah.
yeah. They
It really does, except like rising out of the ground.
yes, it looks
Yeah.
rough, but and then like some of the well, let me ask a quick question: do the show characters end up being a constant? Like, are they?
Yeah.
I was wondering if those cameos
Too much so.
Okay,
Yeah, they are often in my last review. I just said this character had the unfortunate event of having to talk to a real Game of Thrones character,
Right.
Because it's like Danny in this episode it's just like that is nothing like Danny whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, and then also the character models are really uneven. Like
Oh,
Tyrion
yeah.
looks awesome. I think Cersei looks really good.
Right.
Then Marjorie is like kind of. I get what you're going for there, or
Yeah, here's with Marjorie in particular, like they kind of go for a pastel kind of watercolor art style throughout this game, and like Marjorie in particular drives me nuts because
Too
like
sharp.
her chest, it looks like peeling paint on the side of a house.
It looks
or
like
something.
deflated paper mache.
That's exactly
there it
it.
is.
And then also there's a division between like the way the show characters look and the game characters look.
Yes.
Where they're much more cartoony in the Telltale style
Yeah.
for the unique characters, and the show characters they try to be a little more realistic, and seeing those two characters talk to each other.
Specifically, Ramsey Bolton.
Yeah.
Like they reveal his character in a way where it's like very true to his character, but then he turns his camera up like and like I think that Ramsey Bolton has like a good look for his character.
Yeah.
Like, that casting is perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And then you see his in-game character model, and I was just like, oh, who is this? Who's this man?
Yeah. And there's a funny moment in episode 4 where Marjorie shows up at this party and you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? And she just
Walks
floats by.
Yeah.
and then walks back out and you're like, what was that
cool.
about?
But they
Did
reminded
they not get the voice actor
Yeah.
for that episode?
it was just that reminder of like, hey, Marjorie's really mad at you. And like since these episodes come out, every 2 or 3 months. Like
Yeah.
I genuinely don't remember why she's mad at me. It's just too sporadic for me to actually keep the information fully within my head of what the hell is happening, what choices I even made.
That reminds me of me having to have conversations around the office, specifically with you, Ben, where it's like, hey, this really major relationship, I don't remember why that's a thing. What's the deal? And you usually look at me like, are you nuts?
Right.
Like,
Or if I'm watching it with you, I take the drink out of your hand every time.
it helps.
That you seem confused
Yeah.
in Game of Thrones about a very basic thing.
That works.
But it bothers me having the show characters in there as much as they do. Like, I understand it's Game of Thrones. You got to throw them there a little bit. But knowing the show and knowing how busy those characters are and how focused they are on their own objectives, like having Marjorie set aside time to talk to Mira, her handmaiden, for hours a day and like get entangled in her drama with her family. It's
What
like,
else is she going to do?
she has so much to worry about. Like, don't worry about Mira. Just Jesus Christ. These people have so much else on their plate. They should not give a crap about this random bloke up at the wall.
Yeah,
you know?
I kept on feeling like, especially the stuff with Mira in the first episode, I'm just, all that was going on in the back of my head is like, you're overstepping your bounds, you're overstepping your bounds, you're
Right.
overstepping your bounds. When is she just going to like be like, I got to go and like walk mid-sentence and just leave you?
I have
to-
important things to worry about.
Yeah.
My big takeaway on this is I think it's cool the way that it fits as well within the show as it does. Like that, actors, characters from the show giving you more attention than they should withstanding. But I feel like the story and everything else is just fine. Like, I don't think any of the characters really stand out. Like, I always give myself the Red Letter Media Star Wars prequels test, where it's without describing what the character looks like or their job, tell me about their personality. Which is like, okay, Mira,
Likes her
Roderick,
family.
it's like strongish. Like, that's all I got. And like the strongest character is probably Beska, which I don't think you've seen yet, Tim. But even she's just like,
She's awesome.
she's just like a powerful lady, which is cool. But like beyond that, I really don't have a reason to care.
I had a feeling like by the first time you see the first character, like playable character in that series, it was one of those things where I'm like, boy, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in this character, but he was such a blank slate that they could go a lot of places, I guess, with him.
Yeah.
And you don't have that intimate like relationship you do with like Lee and Clementine from
Sure.
Walking Dead, where they're always on screen. This
Yep.
is
Right.
like you're bouncing from kingdom to kingdom across the narrow sea.
Good point.
There's not enough little charming little personality moments like I feel like there were in Walking Dead. And plus, Telltale's games are looking so old. Like seeing those animation rigs.
Oh.
Jeff Quirk put it the best way when they announced that they were working on Marvel stuff. Jeff Quirk said, "Well, it's time to reskin the puppets." Like,
It's not unfair.
It's not.
You know, I was playing that and my girlfriend was watching and she just like there was a very serious moment and she wasn't paying attention the entire time and she just bust out laughing. And like the way one of the characters will just kind of like turn like they're like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic just all of a suddenly or they'll just like float away or something where it's
Float
like
away?
Well, I mean float out of scene or something because they didn't want to animate the lower half of their torso or something. I don't know.
Well, here's a question for you guys then. These games are made episodically. They do them very quick.
Right.
Obviously, it's pretty crude. Would you
Right.
rather them not do them episodic and do like take their time a couple years to make one of these games and really like flesh out the characters?
That's an option. Release it like more on a bi-weekly schedule, but also just looking at, I just think they need a new engine or something in there because Life is Strange is turning them out just as quick as they are, and Life is Strange, it's not an amazing looking game, but those animations blow Telltale out of the water.
If they get rid of every single action focused thing, I don't want to move my character.
Right.
I don't want to do QuickTime events. If they got rid of all that stuff and streamline just choices, then I'd be on board for playing more at once, I think. But at the time, like I don't want to play more than 2.5 hours at once.
Because of those 3 sections where you have to walk around.
I'm not into that. So for them, it's not like the water cooler thing. That's I know that's what they're going for with their episodic stuff because there are so many
Right.
twists and turns that they want to create these water cooler moments. But I look at the episodic format as a bonus for it, so I don't have to feel guilty for leaving behind a game for a few weeks.
Also, I feel like that water cooler with Game of Thrones has just been abandoned. Like, it is one of the hottest properties out there, and Telltale's a pretty big game studio. I feel like I see nobody talking about these games that Telltale's releasing anymore. After, like, we had so many meetings when Walking Dead, the first season, came out, where everyone just wanted to discuss, like, the day after that new episode came out, and like, despite the quality maintaining roughly the same area, like, there's just such a lack of enthusiasm, I feel like, for freaking Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they're still good games. They're still worth playing. I would say if you're a Game of Thrones fan,
Sure.
absolutely play this. I mean, it's very cool to see this family and have what is considered canon,
Right.
by Martin's estate or whatever.
Right. So you consider the game more canon than the show, Reiner? Is that what we're getting
absolutely. No. But I mean, it is still fun. You do have. They know how to end episodes. I'll say that. Like, there'll be a lot of like slow moments along the way, but when you get up to that final chapter, it just ramps up, and there's like something crazy happens. You're like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah,
I am excited about, just like in the show, I feel like the Wall storyline is the strongest, and I'm really curious with what they're teasing in the game.
That could be dangerous territory, by the way, what they're teasing.
I think they're teasing something much more innocuous than
this isn't a spoiler. The last chapter.
This is way spoilery. Like
the last chapter, which is in the title select screen from when you start playing episode 1, is called The Ice Dragon.
And I cannot imagine that's going to be a real... It's the name of the episode in the game.
It could be a name of a sword or
Could
a
be.
person.
I think it's going to be a corpse of a dragon.
Okay.
I think they're going to stumble across that corpse and
That's
you'll
fine.
fight a bad guy in the corpse of a dragon.
But if that thing's alive, it's
No
all
way.
done. It's
There's
all
no way.
done.
I think it's going to be deflated paper mache.
We need to move on because Dan's eyeballs might fall out of his
They
head because he's
might.
been rolling them for so long.
I have
here.
not.
But we should talk a little bit about the big news from yesterday, which is the announcement of Fallout 4.
It's a little game right there.
Yeah.
What series?
Fallout 4. Tim, you recently fell in love with Fallout 3, so I'm curious to get your reaction to Fallout 4's announcement here.
I'm super excited. Like, I played Fallout. I don't know what happened with Fallout 3 and me, but like I just missed the boat. And like when I did finally get around to it in like early like maybe like 2010, 2011, I played like 8 hours of it and blew up Megaton and then killed Tenpenny. I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm trying to be Maverick, and I just didn't have a good time. And then I went back to it earlier this year. I was inspired by a lot of like, I was watching a lot of Mad Men, and I caught up on Mad Men. I'm like, I want more like 1950s kind of stuff, and the music and all that. And
That is like the weirdest.
it's a weird route.
I'm sorry. I had to like
It's a weird route.
going from Mad Men to that just seems so insane to me.
It's just that sort of like weird vision of the future, like the
Sure.
Anyway, white picket fences, cul-de-sac type stuff. And I've absolutely I think Fallout 3 might be at least in like my top 15 or 20 of all time. Like,
Wow.
Sure.
it was really way up my alley, and I loved it. And the idea that from what that trailer looks like, it's more of the same, but a little denser, a little more polished. Like,
So it's taking place in Boston instead of around the DC area. It's kind of a bummer to me. I know we have New Vegas, but I wanted them to explore something else. I want to see what like Europe's like, or something that's just a little bit less similar, but seems like less interesting than DC.
I think that's cool, and what you're pitching is cool. But if you look at how good the Capital Wasteland was, I think it's because Bethesda's based in DC, like,
Right.
and the fact that they know that area so well, and they clearly know the East Coast, and they do such a good job of weaving in like American history in cool ways.
Okay, but you talk about landmarks that'd be cool to see in a post-apocalyptic world in DC versus Boston.
Yeah,
Boston,
there's not
we-
a lot in Boston.
No, that's true. That's a really fair
Paul
point.
Revere statue, Fenway Park.
Right. There's a boat, like a little pirate ship thing in the bay in the trailer. Honestly, but like that's the charm of Fallout 3 is seeing like the destroyed mall and going through the subway system and all that stuff. And it's like in
I
Boston,
don't know if that's the charm.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't say it's
I'd
cool,
put that at
but-
like maybe 50 on my
Did you
list
say
of
this-
things I like about it.
Did you say the subway system was part of the charm of Fallout 3?
Yeah,
I think so.
absolutely
I'd say
not.
that, yeah.
It's a really unique subway system in DC, and it's cool seeing that replicated in the game.
But I think those are some of the weakest parts of the game. Is
if
the
I wrote the
subway
review for Fallout 3, it would just be check out these subways.
Never leave the subway. Okay. Eat fresh.
I know, Reiner. What do you think about Boston?
Sorry.
I think it's a interesting choice. Especially it being a continuation from the last game is what we're kind of seeing when you
Right.
see the Brotherhood of Steel armor again. You immediately make that connection, like, okay, I think this is probably going to be right around where the last one left off.
Right.
And bless Bethesda for doing a in-game engine trailer opposed to CG,
Right.
so we could get a really nice look at
Yeah.
at what it's like.
Yeah.
The thing I'll say is DC, I mean, their color tone was very gray and green and black. This one was very colorful. So I think their artists were kind of given like free reign over make this look like you think it would look.
And you're not just thinking of the flashback sequences in that trailer, because that's the whole
you
context.
see those shots of like those hover ships taking off or the carrier ships taking off, and the
Right.
city you see is just beautifully reds
Sure.
and greens, and
Yeah.
it looks amazing.
It looks way more colorful, and I think that's one of the. I think it fits, the brown sepia tone, greenish brown of Fallout 3. It fits with the universe, but seeing those colors in there was definitely a welcome change.
Definitely. And it was amazing that they showed as much as they did in that first trailer this far ahead of E3, because now at E3 it's like, well, it's game on. We're probably going to see gameplay of this thing in action,
Well,
especially with Bethesda having their own press conference.
You know, Miller
Probably.
was, and they got
Yeah.
a 3-hour press conference, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And Miller was reminding me that generally, you know, they like to announce these games with Todd Howard, you know, describing like 40 odd minutes of gameplay.
It's true. Like on the Skyrim trip, it wasn't a quick demo. Like we sat in that theater for at least 45 minutes, and he walked us through the open world. So
you got it for a game like that.
yeah, it's the best way to
Yeah.
encapsulate it, I guess. But
I'm the thing that I can't stop thinking about is I think there's some givens. Like, okay, first person, optional third person,
Sure.
VATS, like, you know, NPCs that are constantly populating the world. There's these Bethesda trademarks I think that we're going to see, but I'm excited to see like what's new about this, or
Right.
if there's not some crazy in your face new thing, like what have you done to refine this system and make this engine, like hopefully it's a new engine, but like or mostly new.
hopefully, yeah.
But I'm curious what they're changing for the better.
The big thing for me would just be no loading going into houses.
Oh my gosh.
That would just be a victory. Like it could be the same gameplay experience with that gone, and I'll just be like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
That would do it for you.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Well, I mean,
And if I could get no loading
in a
going
new
into
world
the
and new
subways,
adventures, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I would be content with more Fallout 3 just done up in a prettier, bigger way.
But a little cleaner. I mean, there's a lot of rough edges in Fallout
Sure.
3. I mean, just even going back to it, you have to apologize for a lot of it. I mean, recycled
to be fair, you
environments.
played on 360 as far as the
I'm
overall
talking
looks.
about design.
Sure.
You know, and then there's certain things with the Bethesda formula, like the way that it'll zoom in on a character's face and the way you'll have a conversation
Ugh.
with them, you know. After playing something like The Witcher 3, the way they
yeah.
handle and they frame conversations that are just with regular like NPCs, like side quest NPCs, I'm like, wow, this is a really interesting shot. And it's going to make it harder to go back to the BioWare or Bethesda sort of just zoom in on people's faces thing.
I think BioWare is less guilty of that than Bethesda is, but
You're
yeah,
right,
definitely.
yeah.
But yeah, I think Witcher 3 has raised the bar to a certain degree as far as quests and just world design in open world games. And I'm curious how the masters of open world,
yeah,
is that fair? Outside of
RPGs?
Rockstar?
Yeah, open world RPGs. I mean,
yeah, certainly how they tackle the challenge.
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, if you guys played Skyrim, those big moments with like the dragons, the big cutscenes that they kind of had were pretty awful in terms of
Sure.
the way they were framed.
The way
Yeah.
the Bethesda games have never been great at conveying story through action, like at all. Unless you're talking about the like Liberty Prime stuff or something from Fallout 3, like
Right.
huge spectacles. It's mostly through dialogue and like reading things and audio diaries and stuff. I got more invested in Fallout 3's stories and those quests than I did in anything in Skyrim combined.
Yeah.
And so if they're taking that even one step further, I'm really curious. Also, the protagonist says a line at the end of that
Right,
trailer,
right.
which I'm not going to hang my hat too much on anything there, but it was a protagonist that said more than fuss roda or ugh.
Right.
Like, you know,
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean that we're going to have more of maybe a Mass Effect type of experience where
Yeah.
your character's voiced and you're interacting in that regard? I'd be cool with that.
I would give that a shot for sure.
Definitely. But hey, speaking of reading things, Tim, in the quests, we should move on to the second segment where we read a bunch of listener, reader emails. The whole, like, can we just call it feedback like we do in the magazine? Just the feedback section?
The email section. Let's answer some emails.
Thank God. All right. So stay tuned. We're going to get to a bunch of fun emails. And then after that, it's the Here's the Storm interview. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Game Informer Show podcast. So we're going to do some emails here. We're going to go through a bunch of questions and comments and stuff. These are emails that we encourage you to write into us so that we can answer them in this section. So anything you want to hear us talk about, specifically, I'd say for next week, we have an E3 themed episode planned.
Yeah.
So if you have questions about E3 that you want to hear us talk about, maybe share some speculation or something, next week's podcast is all about that.
Or if you're a developer, just write in and say what you're working on.
Yeah, just tell us all your
the secret
secrets.
stuff.
Right.
And that's podcast@gameinformer.com. And we also do a email of the week. So whether you have a comment that kind of sparks some discussion or a specific question, send it to podcast@gameinformer.com. And if we choose yours, we'll send you a little special something.
And just to be clear, that special something, it's a napkin that you put lipstick on and then kiss. And
We
then
said
put
we
in-
wouldn't talk about
Okay,
that.
all right, move on.
Okay, so let's kick things off here. Tyler writes, hey, I'm from Reno, Nevada, and a huge fan of the show. I was wondering where you guys stand on the console versus PC debate. Do you guys religiously stick to one side?
Here we go.
Or is it a thing where you'll
is a
play
good one.
certain genres on each platform? For instance, I prefer RPGs on PC, but I prefer shooters on consoles. Thanks a bunch, guys. Keep up the good work, Tyler.
I play a lot on my computer, and so it's nice to have as much kind of built in there as possible. And plus, like, I just spent a decent amount building a new rig, as the cool kids say. And so it's always like with The Witcher, for example, like I know they're going to be really flexible with modding and stuff like that, so I will always choose that version over the console version, just 'cause it has more wiggle room and kind of I want to push my PC to its limits as well.
Yeah.
Reiner, I know you don't have a PC.
No, I have a PC. I just go where the good games are, and for the last 10 years, it's just been console. So,
Reiner, also specifically,
You just
have
ignored
been
World
playing
of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's fine.
World
And,
of War-
and most of Blizzard's, all of Blizzard's stuff.
But you've been playing more and more on Xbox One, I've noticed. Is that just like an achievements thing?
That's where my friends are. So I kind of go where my friends are for multiplayer and stuff like that. But no, I'll play the big PC games, when they come out or when I have time. I try to play all the big games each year.
Here's the Storm, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I can't wait to jump into that. And
You can't wait.
I'd be very surprised if we see him on there.
I would like to
play.
see you on it. All right.
I would love to play.
Can we all
waiting.
commit, like us all at this table right now?
I'm
We will
waiting.
all commit to play a game
All right,
together.
bring in
Here's
the
Storm.
laptops, everybody. We're going to play Heroes of the Storm on this podcast.
It'll run on them too, probably.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's. I think it's our job, all of us, to check out as many of the big games as we can each year. We do the top 50 or whatever at the end of the year. Obviously, it's impossible to play it all.
Right.
But in our
Look,
spare time, we are trying to get all the big stuff out of the way.
We're not going to play Galciv 3. Let's all be honest here.
Why do you call it Galciv?
That's what the cool kids say.
It is what we call it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
moving right into that, as the PC editor, clearly,
Defend your job.
clearly my preference is to play on PC, and I think it's really unusual that he prefers to play shooters on console. Because
Yeah.
I really, I'm not even being biased here. Like the mouse and mouse keyboard precision on a shooter, I think is vastly superior.
It blows
to
it out of the
control
water,
controls.
the dual analog sticks.
It's kind of a bummer, though, for me because I have my PC hooked up to my TV. So even though I'm playing on PC, I play with the controller as much as possible. And so it's like stuff like Advanced Warfare's multiplayer. I wanted to just check it out for a little while, but my wireless mouse and keyboards aren't great, and so I still want to play with the controller. But then playing with the controller in the PC crowd, I realized I'm just going to get annihilated even more than normal.
Mouse and keyboard doesn't feel great unless you're, leaning over a desk and peering into a monitor.
This is true.
Yeah.
And also, I also do use a controller on some PC titles. So for Dark Souls 2, I'm not going to play that on mouse and keyboard.
Right,
No
an
way.
action game.
Yeah, so action RPGs definitely.
It's a weird time, right? Like where you're getting a lot of experiences from PC on console, but then at the same time, you're seeing a lot of people playing their PCs with Xbox 360 controllers.
Sure.
Right.
If the
It's
game's
this
a-
weird kind of cross-breeding, pollination going on.
platformers and ARPGs, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go right to that.
It was an odd thing for me. I, grew up playing PC games in the 90s and played a lot of first-person shooters. A lot of them did not have a Y-axis. My computer couldn't handle a lot of the games where Y-axis was a huge deal.
You needed the Y-axis chip. You had to put it in the back.
That's right. Oh my god, I should have gotten.
Now
that.
they're just color coded. You just plug and play.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I should have gone for that. And then once I got a new PC down the line, I think one of my first games I played was Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I'm like, I can finally play Return to Castle Wolfenstein. And just that free motion of the mouse and keyboard, I was like hooked. Just dialing in on a headshot on a Nazi and just seeing just the helmet go flying and it's just like, oh my God, that was all me. It wasn't auto aim on the Y-axis or whatever. It felt really good.
Sure.
And I enjoyed Medal of Honor around those times from PlayStation as well for the dual analog stick controller. But I was a purist for mouse and keyboard for a long time, all the way up until the first BioShock. And I liked playing that with mouse and keyboard. I remember the turning point for me, and also Left 4 Dead was a big one. I need to be able to turn fast.
Right.
These zombies are so fast. I need every advantage I can in this situation. And then I went on a review trip to Valve to play Left 4 Dead 2. This was one of my first trips at Game Informer. And I'm like, okay, so where are the PCs set up? We got mouse and keyboard somewhere? And I was so surprised Valve, of all companies, oh, no, this is just the... this is the Xbox 360 version of the game.
Really?
Yeah.
It wasn't PC with a controller?
You
seems
just
so
have
insane to me.
controllers.
Are you kidding
And
me?
so I had to throw out everything I knew about playing, all my skill for Left 4
Yeah.
Dead, and start over. And from there on in, that was a turning point for me in being like, if I can play Left 4 Dead 2 capably with a controller, I can do anything. And
so Gabe Newell personally turned you away from a PC guy into a
he
controller guy.
stabbed. He did the Bishop Aliens thing with a knife while I tried to hold the keyboard. It was terrifying. But no, otherwise I go where the games fit. Dragon Age Origins, I'll play on PC, or if there's Steam sales and stuff like that. Otherwise, we talked about playing Game of Thrones earlier. I had this problem where it was automatically booting up in windowed mode. And it was super annoying, and you have to go into the game several options deep and turn off windowed mode. It's just little things like that. Don't have to worry about that on console. I like that.
Sure.
Cool. All right, moving on.
So Dan, you're fired. Move on.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, Jonathan from Indiana. First off, I want to say hi to everyone down at Game Informer. You're all a bunch of great people who I've tweeted at and gotten responses from numerous times, which is awesome.
I tweeted at you
because it's a sign that the Game Informer community is a good one, and I'm happy to be part of it. I'll get right into it. My question is this. If you compare prices of video games today to prices of games in the 90s, you'll see that prices have not changed that much at all, if anything, due to inflation. The prices of modern-day video games have actually gone down. In response, many developers are being accused of nickel and diming gamers to death through microtransactions, subscription-based pay-to-play games, season passes, pre-order incentives, and DLC.
Sure.
Do you think this current trend is here permanently, or do you think that there will be a shift in the coming years where games start to cost more to make up for the more expensive development costs? Thanks, Jonathan.
So costing more, therefore less in-app purchases and whatnot. It's an interesting idea. I doubt it. Seems like every ounce of momentum is going the other direction to make the games cheaper. Technically the last episode of this podcast where I talked to John Vignacchi, who's the producer for Disney Infinity, I was talking to him just about how insane it is with that game that they have this Mario Kart clone that's like a separate, it's not technically a playset, but a playset like thing that you have to go out and buy and then put into that game. And I was talking about why wouldn't you just release that separately? I don't understand. And he's like, well, because you'd have to use the toys still, and so couldn't really release that as a standalone $60 thing. It would feel like a ripoff. And I brought up why not just a $30 game? No one's taking advantage of that $30 game market. It's I think it just has such a tarred name that if it's $60 or nothing,
right?
For the console space, which is kind of frustrating. I don't know. Do you see it going the other way, Reiner?
Yeah, I mean, I think game prices will go up eventually. Who asked the question again?
This is Jonathan.
Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting observation. If you look at theater ticket prices, those have gone up. DVD, Blu-ray prices, those have gone up. And
Lord knows you know that, Reiner.
Yeah, right. I buy Blu-rays all the time. But I mean, not just a little bit. It's been $19.99 for a new release, and then all of a sudden it was $22, and now it's $24.99. Just in a matter of years. Games have been $60 for as long as I can remember. What was it? The 90s, maybe?
And maybe it's this DLC and all these add-ons and stuff that are keeping the price of discs down.
But you are starting to see a couple of little weird things now, that anomalies that are popping up, like Lego Dimensions, which is a Toys to Life game that comes with some Legos. $100.
Right.
Really?
$100 for the core pack. Not
what's the core pack of
70 something, I believe.
Okay. Also, Skylanders announced today.
Yeah, I think that's around the same. So that's just kind of whoa, that kind of came out of nowhere. And then I think Guitar Hero is the same thing. I think that's going to be $100 as well.
That I understand, but that Lego thing, it just reminds me of being a kid and being overwhelmed by the price of Legos.
Right.
How much was Guitar Hero with just one guitar?
$80 maybe?
Wait, was it the first
79,
one?
69?
89?
Yeah, maybe 80, yeah.
So I think that took another jump, But then he's totally right in that you're seeing, okay, how do we monetize this development budget that we had? We'll do DLC, we'll do season pass, we'll do, pre-order purchases, stuff just to guarantee that people are buying it out of the gates. I would like to see games maybe go up in price to reduce some of this, because I can't even keep track of what's coming for Arkham Knight at this point.
It's impossible.
I think if prices do go up, we'll still see the DLC. It's just the core price will change. We'll get higher, and then we'll still have all the stuff on top of it. I don't see how it can go away.
You're probably right.
I don't know.
No one's going to be bold enough to start the trend to take out the in-app purchases at this point.
Well, and then the season pass at this point is kind of that. Hey, put all this money up front. You're getting everything. It's just we'll give it to you later.
Right. And then you have the PC side of things.
I was going to say, kind of PC, either the game is completely free to play, or you can wait for a Steam sale, get it for $5. So
and as far as the developers making money, you always hear reports about indie developers, when they release their financials, it's always interesting to see how much those Steam sales help. The summer sale or the winter sale, their graphs just skyrocket.
Yep.
So now you could get it for $5, which does the developer nothing. And then after 2 days of playing it, decide you don't want it anymore, and get completely refunded.
Oh,
on
that's
Steam.
true with the whole refund thing that they incorporated
I'm
into Steam.
sure that the refund plan was going to undergo some scrutiny.
Okay, but that's the pitch that's out there
That's the
right
model
now.
there right now, yes. But
I don't understand how that's going to work. They say like, oh, if you abuse the system and digitally return your game after 2 days of play, like we'll be able to track it. No,
it's
if
2 hours.
It's
oh, 2 hours. I'm
14
sorry.
days and 2 hours.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but still, like, especially if I were younger and a little bit more strapped for cash compared to where I am now, rolling in the bucks, I would totally take advantage of that. I would totally.
It's like it's a demo.
Yeah,
at
I would
that
play it for an
point.
hour and a half, but if it's
Looking
easy
at
to
it-
submit it and return it, like,
looking at it from the other side of things, man, Steam is a danger zone for a lot of products now, man. There's so much stuff on there. Like,
sure.
20 games come out a day, you know? Maybe it's
Right.
it's insane. It's like, I don't know if this game's any good. Nobody's reviewing it. It's I haven't seen it anywhere.
Yeah.
Should I take the risk on this? I don't know.
I think giving more rights to the consumers in those situations is always a good thing.
I'm against the consumers
All right.
personally, Tim, and I don't know how if we have to go to the mat on this, but
All right. I don't have anything else to add on that.
No, that's
pricing.
fine.
I think
But
you guys-
yeah, the final thing for me is just I bet game prices go up in the next few years.
just to keep up.
$5
Yeah.
to $10, something like that.
I mean, the Wii to Wii U, they went up to 60. They were at 50 last generation, right?
Yep.
And now Wii U is 60. Drew from Westboro, Massachusetts. Hi, GI gang. I feel that we all have a certain genre of games we can't get into. For me personally, it is first-person stealth games. I really want to like these sorts of games, but I can never get into them. What is the genre for you? Likewise, is there a game that you really want to like but never speaks to you? Thanks for the great podcasts, and sorry for the twofer, Drew. I think the
good
core
twofer.
question is like, what do you want to get into and just can't?
I would say open world RPGs before I started playing The Witcher.
Really?
Like one's never really
but The
grabbed me
Witcher's super
before,
good.
but I'm really in love with Witcher 3
Yeah.
so far. But going back to the earlier discussion, it's just strategy. The strategy games, I didn't really grow up with them. I can't get the hang of it, and that involves like, you know, tactical stuff like even Codename Steam, but then also stuff like Civ, where it's like, God, this just seems so cool. I just can't do
Wait
it.
a minute. This boggles my mind. You're a huge RTS person.
Love it.
You're always challenging me in RTS games. That's
Constantly.
strategy. That's still the strategy genre.
But it's the
different.
real time angle. It's the turn based crap. I can't do it.
Okay.
Hey, unless it's Hero Academy on iOS or XCOM Enemy Unknown.
Okay.
So you're not completely. You
But-
wish you were in deeper.
But those two compared to how many I've tried and have just, bleh, I can't do
I
it.
mean,
I can't.
there's a whole range though. Like Civ 5 is a lot easier than say like, you know, a grand strategy paradox game or something.
Right, naturally. Yeah, but that's probably mine. Reiner, what about you?
If you follow me on Xbox Live or PS4, you'll see that I'm always juggling like 5 or 6 games at once, and that's how I
Right.
like playing games. Is a couple hours here, a couple hours there. Sometimes I'll dive into them for 5 or 6 hours. MMOs. It
Oh,
seems like
sure.
when you take on an MMO, you cannot do this because your friends are just going to fly past you. You're going to be just left in the dust.
you have to become monogamous.
There have been so many advances to fix that kind of thing over the last few years in a lot of games where they will like level you down to your friends' levels so you
Sure.
can always have a good group experience. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I tried World of Warcraft. I tried Old Republic. I played Final Fantasy 11. You know, I really gave these games EverQuest before that. Really gave these
Sure.
games great
Okay,
shots.
so you're
like
playing some really
went for it.
hardcore ones.
Yeah.
But it was like Andy Mack would be like 15 levels beyond me, like on the weekend. It's like, what just
Well, to
happened?
compare yourself to Andy McNamara
well, or
in
any
terms
of my friends, Matt
MMOs.
Miller, you know, it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like we had these dedicated groups, and they're just like, sorry.
I'm complete with you, Reiner. Like I did get into World of Warcraft for a long time, very hard, but I've constantly felt behind, and I fell in love with those games because I liked the solo play a lot, and if it wasn't for that, I would have just been behind constantly. Yeah, Dan.
I'm gonna. So this is the question: what do we want to get into that we're not into?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've tried
Yeah.
to get into it over and over
I don't
again.
have anything that I want to get into that I don't play, but I'll agree with him that I don't like first-person stealth games. I
You
hate
don't.
them.
Okay, and you don't want to like them.
Yeah, I don't want to like them.
Okay, so
Dan is a content human being.
Dan likes and plays everything that he wants to
Right?
play.
Why would it? It's sort of weird for me to like. I want to get into it, but I don't like it. That doesn't make any sense.
See, because you have that focus
All right,
that we're
well,
jealous of, Dan.
Here's mine. It's fighting games.
Oh, sure.
I would love to get so intimately familiar with a certain fighting game or have a good enough skill at any fighting game, kind of like you, Dan, where you can pick up a fighting game and you generally can study the way someone's playing and like know that like, all right, well, they don't block high, so I'll just keep jump kicking them or whatever. Like Mortal Kombat X came out and like, God, I really want to get good at this Mortal Kombat. And then I'm just like, the hook isn't there for me to
Right.
just keep playing and get good at this character or that character.
You just need a rival, like
And
a local rival.
That's
It
true, and
requires
I want to
everybody's-
sit
yeah.
down with I want an arcade stick. I had them for last gen, and I was playing a bunch of Street Fighter 4, and it was this close to. I can't even kid myself. I enjoyed what I was playing
Yeah.
and trying to learn combos and stuff, but it doesn't fit for me.
This
You
summer,
have a-
Tim.
Yeah, you have a new opportunity coming up with the new Street Fighter, right?
That's
So-
true, and also Ben has a arcade cabinet with Street Fighter 2 on it.
We're going to get into Street
Yeah,
Fighter
that's a good
2
one.
this summer.
That's
Yeah.
a good game.
Yeah.
I like
I've
that
heard a
one.
lot about it.
All right. We got Hunter from Greenville, South Carolina. Hey guys, longtime listener, love the show. So my friend and I got really drunk and decided to play Halo Master Chief Collection on my Xbox One. About 7 beers in, we decided to turn on a ton of different skulls, including the one that
Great.
increases crazy physics, unlimited ammo, and every gun you have shoots scarab beams. That sounds dangerous.
Sounds like a great night.
What was originally Halo turned into a crazy drunken game. What was originally Halo turned into a crazy drunken game where we had to spend the entire time being insanely careful not to kill ourselves. My question is, have you ever drank? No, it's my question is, it's really cool. I think you should look. My question is, have you ever found a fun way to play a game that clearly wasn't the way the developer intended it for it to be played? Let's stick with that one.
Yeah.
They say also, have you used cheats or external power ups in games for added enjoyment?
Sure.
Your favorites. Let's stick with the weird versions. Thanks, guys. Hunter.
Yeah. My favorite, which I've been trying to play with you guys for a while now, is playing Red Dead Redemption in the open world multiplayer, which is basically just the lobby for Red Dead's multiplayer. If you don't have the sniper rifle yet, which you get at a certain point, if you get to like level 10 or something, you can go to a certain town in the southwest. I forget what it's called, but there's a sniper rifle there. Go down there with your buddies, each grab a sniper rifle, turn off the map, turn off the name indicator in the HUD, and then you just all agree to stay somewhere within eyesight of that one town where the sniper rifle is, and then you just have the equivalent of the end sniper duel from Metal Gear Solid 3. Where it's just a super slow paced, scanning the horizon, looking for any sort of movement. And it's like, it can be like 10 minutes before you see each other, but you see them and they don't see you. And then like when you get that shot off, it is the best feeling.
That sounds tense.
It's really
and
fun.
then those sniper rifles, not necessarily one hit kills, so the other person has a chance to get away.
I think they are mainly one hit kills.
Okay.
Yeah, if you definitely hit them in the head, but they are kind of like, it's like the super crude scope where it kind of looks like you're looking through a Coke bottle or something. So it feels cool.
That sounds like fun. I know you always talk about that. That does sound cool. You guys?
Yeah, I mean, another show we do here at Game Informer Replay, we have a segment called "You're Doing It Wrong."
Yeah, yeah.
and that is an exploration of this idea. And we've had some really amazing things, like Tim holding one half of a controller and Kyle holding the other half. And you guys actually really enjoyed playing the game.
It was
that
like
way.
bizarre.
It was Halo, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, and then being blindfolded and having someone walk you through it, or turning on all the crazy physics in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Sure.
And seeing if we can like get to a certain point in the game. Yeah, that's always fun. We're in kind of an area in games now where most games don't have the skulls or cheat codes anymore. So you can't really mess around with it that much,
Right.
which is kind of unfortunate. So you have to have those kind of emergent ideas, like you're saying.
Sure.
One of ours was in Grand Theft Auto 4's open world, which is the hub world.
Yeah.
Someone would fly a helicopter over to this jump, and we'd launch cars into the blades and just watch them go flying, and just loved watching the physics. And we
Yeah.
did that for hours on end.
That sounds like a good one. Tack?
Yeah, I can think of one around good examples. Diablo 2, we played a mode called, it was a user-created mode, I mean, really, because we were playing within the confines of the game, but with a different rule set. It was Iron Man mode. So we'd play on hardcore mode, and the rule was you could never go to town, and you had to turn PvP on
Oh, wow.
with a level 1 character.
Yeah.
So you would literally just play until you were the last man standing, either by monsters killing you
Yeah.
or by the player killing you.
So it was like which one of your friends could make it the farthest?
Right, and it was
Okay.
usually around the beginning of Act 2
Okay.
for the really good runs, but normally nothing past that, because that would, without going to town, you couldn't do a lot of stuff.
That sounds pretty good.
It was good fun.
Mine is also a Halo one. I think the one I played the most. We had a lot of fun with warthogs in the first one and devised a game. It was always on Blood Gulch because it was the most symmetrical. And we would put on rockets and super extra health. And the only way to get a kill, a point, is you had to run someone over with your warthog. So what you'd have, and I think there was only one warthog. You only could use one of them. And no, you could use two, because we'd constantly be hitting each other and hoping that the other person fell out. And then you'd have to run them over. If you shot them with their rocket, it's like, well, that didn't count.
Right.
But the rocket was great for trying to shoot the warthog as it's flying towards you, and then that goes flying into the air, and then hopefully the guy falls out, and then you get back in your warthog and try to hit them.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. And then I tried to recreate that in Halo 2. I remember being so disappointed because warthogs weren't invincible in that one.
Oh, sure.
So that was a good one. Gosh, I think, that's probably, those are probably the big ones.
GoldenEye proximity mines. I guess that's just an option in the game, but that was always
it's
fun.
just an
Just
option.
putting those on doors, and the door starts opening, blows up.
Yeah.
Golden Gun. There was lots of fun stuff in GoldenEye.
A great game for that type of thing too. You talk about like the lack of options these days, but Towerfall just embraces that to a crazy extent of having so many different options and different modifiers you can turn on and off.
Clearly the developers wanted you to do that. I mean,
you can find so many emergent fun games within that if you want.
the other thing I recommend is, this is specifically fun if you've had, a couple adult beverages and you are an adult, is driving head first into oncoming traffic in a GTA game and seeing how long you can last, and just like threading the needle and stuff like that. And it got even,
Tim, threading the needle.
yeah, man, it's really good. Touchdown. You make it between two cars.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we just did a test chamber recently for GTA 5, which is the Taxi AI Challenge.
Oh my goodness.
That's a great example. You should just look up that test chamber. It's a really fun one.
That's pretty good. I've heard about that a little bit.
You got one more here, Tim?
This is actually the email of the week.
Whoa.
Whoa, my God.
Oh my gosh.
He's here. What's his name?
Yeah, Ryan from Pueblo, Colorado. Story time. When first playing through Kingdom Hearts, I was slightly confused about a drop enemies would leave after being defeated. There would be a money. I think it's a Kingdom Hearts thing.
M-U-N-E-Y, right? M-U-N-N-Y?
Yep, that's right. Okay. There would be money,
God.
health orbs, synthesis items, consumables, etc. But there would also be these little bubbles, clear, iridescent bubbles that sounded like they would just pop when picked up. A useless filler item that must only be there for extra effect when beating enemies, I told myself. It wasn't until around halfway through the game that I realized that they were magic orbs that replenished your MP. This leads me to my question. Is there any basic concept to a game that just completely flew over your head and made you feel like a dummy? Thanks for the great show, Ryan.
I mean, way back in the day, I remember not being able to beat the first boss in Final Fantasy VII until a friend came over and said, "This is the item menu." And I was like, what is this now?
no, is this...
But that's just being a stupid kid.
Yeah.
It's like me and you with Puzzles and Dragons.
Yeah, Pleasant D. I was thinking, Tim, we just played through the Order together, and we did not use the like slow motion death, basically the dead eye shot.
It's like almost, it's similar to like playing through Max Payne without ever activating bullet time. Or something like
exactly. Something recently, I guess, was when I played Mass Effect 1. I had the toughest time in the Mako, and I didn't realize there was a machine gun on the Mako. I was just using the rocket launcher.
I was doing the opposite thing. I didn't realize
maybe I
that
was
there
the opposite thing.
I got to this one planet. I actually liked the Mako stuff.
Yeah, I did
despite
too.
This, and I just didn't realize there was rockets, and I was just getting squashed.
Yeah, maybe
You
that
guys
was what it was
shoulda
then.
co-op controller it.
That's right.
You would have had both.
travel back.
Hello,
in time.
Timothy Turi. I don't know you yet. Hello.
Reiner.
This one's really embarrassing, and it's more on Matt Miller and I. We were reviewing Oddworld: Stranger's Wrath, which is that run and gun, crazy Western kind of, I don't know, weird hybrid game with Oddworld's universe.
Sure, it's a bit odd.
And we're like, this is the hardest game ever made. Like, we just keep dying over and over and over. And we got like 3/4 of the way through the game, just like, this is well beyond like Bloodborne. We're dying like 30 times on bosses and stuff like this. And we're doing this for work. So we're at like work playing this game, just like, wow, we really like it, but it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that. I don't know if the tutorial, like if you play the game, they give you like a walking tutorial where you step over an icon and it tells you how to do something. That's the only time they tell you. We didn't have a manual because we were reviewing the game. That if you hit the Y button, your stranger will shake and knock all of his damage off and his health will go back up.
Oh, weird.
So we'd hit triangle every once in a while. You just kind of do this thing. And we're like, that's weird. They
You have to
a,
hold it down.
Yeah, it's like a button to make him shake. So eventually it's just, we got to this one boss fight and we're just like, this is impossible. We're just dying left and right. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, like Miller's at lunch and I was just angry and I just had him start shaking. And then all of a sudden his health started going back up and it was like, oh my God.
As Miller's want to do when he's angry at his games. That reminds me of like if you skip that tutorial part in like, let's say the Getaway and didn't realize that you're supposed to lean onto walls to recover health, you just think it was a weird animation thing.
Oh, sure.
Because it's so subtle.
But it was totally on us. It was our fault. But I mean, I'm so thankful that we figured that out before we ran our review.
Oh my gosh.
But at the same time, you kind of look at it today, like if achievements are around, that might have earned you like a 50 or 100 point achievement, never shake off damage or something like that. So we were kind of doing it hardcore.
Dan?
Dan's flawless.
I'm sure there's one that exists, but I really can't think of one. I've been trying for like the last 10 minutes to come up with one.
Absolutely. This ties into our earlier conversation. I absolutely knew that you would not have one for this. I would have put down so much money on it.
I have been really trying to think of one, but I can't.
That's okay.
What about just like a personal flaw?
Deflated paper mache.
Oh, that's good. Keep going back.
Zing!
A lot of PC games that I've played in my time, like StarCraft or SimCity even, or Civilization, just not having a full understanding of how like it all connects.
Sure.
You know, once you see how the AI is interacting with it, or, you know, like how the AI handles like civilians coming in and out of your villages and stuff like that, or your town. That's always like, you always hit that point in that game where you feel like, okay, I felt like I played it the right way, but I didn't have a full understanding of it. And you have to go back and start again. Like, I'm not going to continue my save because I just know I could have done it so much better.
Right.
I've had that a lot in PC.
Those are complicated games, to be fair. Mine is, I feel like I've talked about this before, but I absolutely adore this game still and actually want to replay it sometime soon. But Valkyria Chronicles is a super underrated PS3, recently released on PC, third-person turn-based strategy game. Really cool. And there's these involved upgrade trees, and this was just one of two things that I totally screwed up. And I was upgrading, like, you know, hey, my scout rifle, I love my scouts, I'm gonna get the rifle be way stronger, my grenades and all these things, and I maxed out that tree. I'm like, you know, some of the skills require you to put multiple points into them. I'm like, God, I have this extra money, and like, I don't know. It seems like I maxed out that tree. And there's like this weird ornate scroll bar on the right that just blended in too well. And I thought it was framing or something. And then I scrolled down. I was like, oh, this is why I've been getting stomped. And like, oh, all right. And I had all this money. I just like, it was a very cathartic thing where I just like filled like a huge chunk because I made it startlingly far into that game. Before that happened. Another thing in Valkyria Chronicles, didn't realize you could save mid-mission, and those are long missions. So I was only waiting until I beat those missions, which they're so involved and can go so wrong in so many ways, whether it's a bad die roll or a surprise enemy, kind of like XCOM or something like that, or the Edelweiss blows up or something. And I beat that whole game without knowing that you could save mid-mission. So it was, I don't know if there's no extra achievement for that or anything, but that was one of those things. I'm excited to go back but then the other thing is like maybe I didn't exploit quick save, quick load that way.
Right.
And actually had a better time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was an awesome email. Ryan, thanks for that email of the week. And again, if you got questions or comments that you want to hear us talk about, it's podcast@GameInformer.com. So
yeah, definitely. And stay tuned for the next section of the Game Informer show to listen to Dan Tack and I talk to a senior producer at Blizzard. It's a fun chat. Stick around. And welcome back to the Game Informer show. We are honored to be joined with Kaeo Milker from Blizzard. Hello, Kaeo.
Hello.
Welcome
Hey,
to the
guys.
show,
How's it going?
man. Doing good. Thanks for joining us. So you are the lead game producer for Heroes of the Storm,
This is true.
which is the biggest release this week. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. Let's do this.
Cool. So you want to just like describe your overall duties there and what the job actually entails?
Sure. So we have a pretty big team that works on Heroes, dedicated developers, producers, artists, designers, engineers. I oversee the overall production trajectory of the project. So everything from kind of scheduling out our milestones and kind of prioritizing some of the major features that we're releasing. I work really closely with our game director, Dustin Browder, our tech director, Alan DeBeery, also our art director, Sam Didier, and kind of the four of us kind of steer the project as a whole.
Cool. I should point out our resident Heroes of the Storm expert, Dan Tack, is also here.
I'm kind of just hanging out.
Yeah, he's hanging out. He's really the expert here. He's been playing a lot of the game. I've started it. I've dabbled a little bit. It's my first MOBA-like experience. I'm trying to get the ropes.
All right. Well, good.
Good.
Good luck in there.
Thanks.
He needs it.
So how long have you been at Blizzard then?
It'll be 14 years this September.
Holy cow. So what projects were you working on when you first started?
When I first came in, it was actually Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, and it was very early in the development cycle for Warcraft 3. I came in quality assurance just as a game tester for that game, During my time there, I did things like doing voices for the game, did some map development. Like back then, Blizzard was very small. We all did a lot of things, wore a lot of hats, and I think some of those early experiences definitely served me well today.
Would we recognize your voice from Warcraft 3?
Probably the most recognizable one is as the Goblin Tinker.
Okay. How's that divided out at Blizzard? How do you guys figure that all the voice work for the earlier projects?
Back then, it was basically like they'd pop their head into the giant bullpen that QA was in, and they'd say, "Hey, can anyone do a voice?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, I can do a voice." And you get pulled in, and then that was it.
Nice.
So a little different process today.
Yeah, I would imagine. Like, how can you compare the size of Blizzard back then to the size of Blizzard today?
Yeah, so when I started, there were about 180 people total at the company. That included Blizzard North up in San Francisco, or San Francisco area. Today, I think there's over 5,000 employees worldwide.
Holy cow. Congratulations, you guys. Turns out you guys are doing a couple things right.
There's been some good games that have come along. It's great.
Yeah, believe it or not. So working on the Warcraft 3 game, can you describe maybe like the earliest days when you started to notice the Dota mod within that game's community start to get traction?
Yeah, I think we started seeing incarnations of like even like the Aeon of Strife maps in the original StarCraft that were being made as mods for that. Kind of the genesis of this genre kind of came from those. Definitely the Dota and Warcraft 3 was kind of the one that really cemented itself, and I think is the one that most people remember as playing kind of the earliest kind of really well done version of kind of this genre that has become MOBA and the space that we're in today. We were playing it in the studios back then and having a lot of fun with it, and I think it really took off, and even today is still really popular within Warcraft 3, the original Defense of the Ancients. It's still huge in Warcraft 3.
Definitely. So is Blizzard the kind of studio that kind of studies the passion of, the people working in the studio? Like if people are staying late to play Dota, it's like, well, that's probably a good bet for the future of gaming.
Definitely. We're a company that's made up of gamers. I think it kind of starts with everyone here at every position, every level. I think we really try to bring in people who are passionate about games and opinionated about them. And I think the games that we're playing today or the ones that we're critiquing today definitely influence the games that we're going to be making tomorrow.
Definitely. So you went on to work on StarCraft 2 a little bit then, right?
Yeah. So I started really early in development of StarCraft 2. I was the first producer that was brought onto the project. And then I was on Star 2 for 8 years total, so very long tour of duty. I love StarCraft. I think it was probably my nearest and dearest to my heart of the Blizzard games, even going back to my time before Blizzard. So it was kind of dream come true to work on that project.
Nice. What do you think you're most proud of with the StarCraft 2 project?
I don't know, that entire experience. When I came in, we basically, we had just finished the Frozen Throne for Warcraft 3, the expansion, and we were kind of getting started on what would StarCraft 2 be, and that was a very large, scary question for us. And I think from the early days, I actually came in, the first thing I did was set up basically a mod in Warcraft 3 that brought all the original StarCraft units over and set up all their data and just got it all running. And I think watching it go from that thing in the very beginning, which was just bits and pieces of sound and some temporary models that the artists were making, to kind of become this full-fledged product that we all poured a lot of our heart and soul into, and seeing that progression and seeing people finally get a hold of it, because that was a game that everywhere I went, people would be like, when's StarCraft 2 coming out? Like, it was the game that everyone asked about back in the day. So I think bringing that to fruition was huge. And now I think I've turned my attention over to Heroes of the Storm, but we have a very talented, very passionate team continuing to work on StarCraft 2, and Legacy of the Void is coming along really nicely, and I think I'm kind of thrilled to be watching it, kind of seeing my baby, as it were, kind of moving off into the world, even without me, but it's doing amazingly well, and I think everyone will be really excited about what comes out with Void.
Are you able to be surprised by Legacy of the Void when it comes out, or are you still so close to that game's development that you kind of understand every, nook and cranny of that thing?
I'm getting, thankfully, to experience it more as a player now than as a developer, which is a really cool experience. I think we get so into these games, we spend so much time dealing with, the minutia of how they're made. It's really cool to come back in and get the peek in on it, come in and play through the campaign now, see the cinematics as they come along, just watch it form more as an observer and as a player. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to talk about just the earliest days of the Heroes of the Storm project and how that team split off, I think, from the StarCraft 2 team, right?
Yeah. Sure. So originally, this game has kind of gone by many names over the years. Originally, we had just finished Wings of Liberty. So this is 2010. We were wrapping up Wings of Liberty. We had a whole team of people that had been busting their butts for years trying to get that game together. We wanted to kind of take a little break, as the project wrapped up and kind of step aside and look at our tools, because like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2 launched with its full editor, so players could make their own mods. And we wanted to make an example or a couple examples of the kind of mods that StarCraft 2's editor was capable of making. So we did a few things at that time. There were some silly things we did. We made something called Iron Chef, which was this collection and cooking game that we made in the editor. We made Star Jeweled, which is actually still really popular today, where it's kind of like a bejeweled matching game that then feeds in to battles within army on the map inside of that game.
Sure.
And then another one we made was at the time called Blizzard Dota, and that was kind of our homage to what had come out of Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, and kind of showing people that you can make a similar game in StarCraft 2 as well. And back then it was just really, I think there were two designers working on it and a handful of artists kind of jumping in and out, making a couple character models and some environment assets for it. We were really just trying to make an example for BlizzCon that year to show people the kind of maps that could come out of the StarCraft 2 editor. So that was really the beginning of it. And we brought it to BlizzCon that year just as this collection. And I think we showed 4 games at that BlizzCon that were kind of mod maps that we had made. And we got so much positive feedback about the Blizzard Dota version of it. And people were really excited about it and they wanted to see more. And we kind of went back to the studio and started talking about it. But it was really like a side project and really just something we were doing, again, just trying to show off the editor. But it really got the wheels turning, and a lot of discussions internally were kicked off based on that early feedback.
And did that team naturally start to grow, or did the higher-ups take a look at that enthusiasm and kind of get a sense of the overall industry and kind of the growth in that market and realize, like, all right, let's put our eggs in this basket?
It was actually a really slow transition, because even after that initial BlizzCon 2010, we still were we went back, and the same kind of very small group of people were playing around with it. We were continuing to kind of really test the water, see what we wanted to do with it. But again, there's this kind of groundswell of excitement about it inside the studio, inside our team, again, for everyone we were hearing from at BlizzCon. So it was actually a multi-year process between taking us from that little tiny group of a couple people just working part-time on it to what we have today, which is this full-fledged dedicated development team of over 100 people that are focused on it. It was really, it's not an external thing that kind of made us transition to that. It really was about what our team wanted to do and what we were excited about. And I think every kind of step of the way, every turn, as we made a little bit of progress on it, it would always build a little more excitement within our team. And that kind of really kickstarted our not funding of it, but really our dedicating more resources, more people to it. So it slowly grew from 2 to 4 guys to about 10 people working on it. And then as we wrapped up Heart of the Swarm, that's when we really decided to take a step back and say, this thing, we've shown it a couple BlizzCons, we get so much positive feedback on it. Everybody's really excited. We're starting to make decisions about it that could say, like, what if this isn't a mod map for StarCraft 2? What if this was its own game? What would we do differently? Like, if we weren't just trying to make an homage, if we were trying to make our own game, what would that look like? And I think as we started exploring those questions and figuring out the answers, we got really, really excited. And that's when we kind of was the tipping point and start saying, this is a real game. This is something different. It's not StarCraft 2. It's not inside StarCraft 2. This is its own thing. And then we really started putting our mind share and resources behind it at that point.
Did it have a similar structure back then as it does now, or what are some of the biggest changes from like the earliest days of the project to what's launching this week?
Yeah, the early stages, even at that point, after we started putting, we went to maybe about 15 people on the project, artists and designers. There were 2 producers on it at that time. I think we started like kind of dissecting it, and this is what we do a lot with our games. We revisited a lot of genres where they've been established games before us, and they've done really well, and they've kind of been looked at as the benchmark of what these games can be. But Blizzard always has this way of kind of taking a look at those things and asking ourselves those hard questions that let us distill it down to kind of what we think is really the essence of those games and what makes them successful. And that's where we start picking apart the things that we don't think are that great in them and trying to introduce things that we think would kind of enhance the things that we really like about them. So with Heroes, the early conversations there were things like, we had an item shop from the very beginning when we made it as a mod map, but we didn't really think that served, it wasn't really serving our goals of trying to make a lot of variety and strategy in the game, where we didn't want to be kind of boxed in by creating an item shop that was just a bunch of genericized items that all the heroes use, because that tended to give us a lot of limitations for the types of items we could make, because they had to be universally applicable. So, that really took us down the road to start exploring talents, where we were building like a custom set of talents for every hero, where we were really able to custom make them for every hero, let them serve their own purposes for that hero, change the way the hero plays fundamentally. It became a lot more work because we effectively were making like a little mini item tree for every single hero, but we really liked the creativity and power that it gave us. as developers and then ultimately as players to be able to take those tools and kind of do cool new things with them.
Definitely.
So that was like an early one. Battlegrounds were another thing where from early on, we worked on, again, StarCraft, Warcraft 3, StarCraft 2. We're very much used to making lots of different maps for our games, especially the RTS games that we've made. We really leveraged those various maps as a cool tool to put in players' hands to kind of change their experience. So even though in StarCraft you might be used to the 3 races, you might be used to your build orders, on a different map they might play really differently. And we like that choice. We like that strategic depth. So for Heroes, we thought we wanted to try that, but it was scary because we'd seen other games in the genre had tried that, and they largely were just kind of abandoned by their communities. Everyone wanted to play on one map. There's the standard map usually with these games. Everyone wants to play on it. And I think as we started looking at it and said, we want to try more, it was scary. Everybody thought that was a cool idea, but it was also something that wasn't being done, and we'd seen it be rejected before. So we kind of went into that very cautiously. But I think we got to the point where we had like maybe 10 battlegrounds, or actually back then we just called them maps, 10 maps that were basically just variations of the standard 3-lane map that we would be used to, but there wasn't any other mechanics or anything on them, and that didn't really cut it for us. So we started exploring map mechanics, where every map got its own unique mechanic that really fundamentally changed the way the game played and offered like a lot more options of how you want to play, how your team should interact with each other and with the battleground itself. And once we kind of flipped over to that mentality, I think a whole new world opened up to us, and then we got really excited about the idea of multiple battlegrounds, and we quickly started developing a lot of different ones and really leveraging how much they changed the game, how much they changed the heroes and their utility game to game. So it really became kind of a huge catalyst for kind of the next phase of the project.
Definitely. Hey, Dan, what was your gut reaction when you heard that they weren't going to have an item shop in Heroes of the Storm?
I would say that it was a lot like other reactions at the time who had played similar games, that it was going to sort of like... I don't know, dumb down the experience, but
Sure.
After playing 300 or so games at this point, I can say that's not the case. So,
and how do you think they pulled it off?
It does, for my take on it anyway.
Sure.
Is that it focuses a lot more on team play than the other games. So you really do have to work together as a team, but it takes away a lot of the other like hurdles that those other games have, especially in the learning process. So you can get in and play Heroes a lot easier. But at the same time, you also may not get the sense that you are a hero as much as you do in some of those other games by having so much single-person impact in a game. It's really all about the teamwork. So if you're a team player, then it's probably a better fit.
Right. With like the shared experience and everything. Was that all part of the strategy?
That was another one of those really kind of difficult, controversial choices that we made. That one we thankfully had a lot of ammunition for, because by making that choice, it really gave us the option, especially on creating really unique heroes. And then it also, that reinforced the idea of multiple battlegrounds as well, because we could create opportunities for everyone to have something to do on the battleground without feeling like they were falling behind. So the fact that we went to team experience instead of individual hero experience was a huge thing that empowered us to make some of those other choices. So all these things kind of stacked on one another. I think if you remove individual components from this puzzle that we've made here, a lot of other things fall apart. So it really took some of those really strong early decisions about team leveling, about getting rid of the item shop, about the battlegrounds. All those things kind of work in unison to create this harmony, I think, that is the way the game functions today, and kind of a lot of the fun and a lot of what's different about it that we think has been really successful.
I would imagine one of the most entertaining parts of this project was when you guys were trying to come up with the lore that would harness everything within Heroes of the Storm. I assume you're in those meetings. Can you just like describe what those discussions were like back then?
So I don't know. I wouldn't say that we've put a tremendous amount of resources into justifying the lore of this
Sure.
game. I think Uther in the tutorial sums it up best, where he says, don't think about this too hard, because it's really. It's not. There's not a lot of lore behind that. It's just kind of
Right.
this idea of like Blizzard the game. What happens if we bring all these crazy characters together, and now we're starting to bring the worlds together as well. What kind of game comes out of that when all these people get together? Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in any of these worlds to suddenly have Kerrigan and Diablo hanging out together. It just doesn't. So
Yeah.
it's really being done in the name of fun, and we really kind of wave our hands at that very early. Like within a few minutes of being in the tutorial, after you jump in the game, we tell you that. We say, don't worry about this, just have fun.
Nobody cares about the lore of Smash Brothers. It's just seeing those characters interact with each other.
Totally. And I think I just read an interesting community, someone from the community wrote an idea of like what this would all be one big shared world, and there's some cool backstory to it. And that's a really cool idea. But at the end of the day, I think we like just saying, hey man, these guys are just sucked into this interdimensional storm. They're duking it out. Get in there and kick some butt, you know?
Yeah, I think like the first cinematic trailer you guys had really nailed that tone where everyone's like, all right, this is effing awesome. I don't need to understand why this is happening.
Yeah.
It must be great for you guys because Blizzard has always had that goofy tone. And in all of your games, it seems like you're kind of walking that line between, a really interesting narrative experience, but then it seems like there's so much pressure within the studio where you guys want to have that outlet for creativity and just silly fun. It's kind of the heart of Blizzard in a way. And now you get that outlet for just pure goofiness and just, especially with all the skins and stuff. Can you guys describe some of the things you're doing on that front?
Yeah, I think that's really exciting for everybody working on it. I think our team is made up of a bunch of just passionate Blizzard fans, and so this is kind of the ultimate dream there of take all of our favorite games and put them all together. And while we have some like core rules we have to adhere to, like you know who Arthas is, you want Arthas to be Arthas, you don't want him to become a joke. So, but there's other opportunities to bring in like an ETC or a Murky and just be completely off the wall, and it's totally acceptable. And I think that flexibility of being able to bounce back and forth, day to day, character to character, battleground to battleground, to be able to kind of explore the full spectrum of seriousness and emotion and goofiness. I think everybody loves that, and it really does let us take the best of all the things from Blizzard's games and bring them all together.
Definitely. So the tutorial is great, I should point out. It turns out Blizzard knows how to make a hell of a tutorial. But can you lay out like your ideal path for people learning this game? Do you have something in your mind for like play the tutorial, then maybe watch a couple matches, then get an expert friend to consult you? Like what is your optimum path for a rookie here?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think I would say too, the tutorial that we see today is definitely just the beginning of it. We've iterated on it a couple times since we first introduced it during our technical alpha, and I think we definitely want to do a lot more. We've done some things in StarCraft that I think were really successful. We had a thing called challenge mode where you could get in and it would kind of take you on a specific unit in StarCraft, and it would kind of give you something to do with a limited amount of time that basically let you use that unit's abilities or figure out a way to play it that maybe you wouldn't have encountered just by the course of playing the game normally. I think there are opportunities for us to do more things like that with heroes on like a per hero basis, but we also know that the community is really, really good and really excited about doing those things as well. So there's definitely this big component now where we have a game and we're going to put as many things in the game as we can to help them along, but there's also this community helping itself as well that we think is really cool, and oftentimes they do a much better job than we ever could as well in terms of framing those things in a way that is meaningful for other players. So I think there's a balance there of the things we give them, the tools we give them, the information we give them in the game. Definitely playing with friends is a huge part of this game, and thankfully it's coming out tomorrow here, so it's free to play. Everyone can jump in and play it. There's nothing kind of holding you back from doing that. So we hope a lot of people come in with their friends and either learn it together, or a friend can take someone under their wing and kind of walk through it together as well. And then again, the community side of it, I think I'm seeing tons of cool guides and walkthroughs and kind of ways to play and things coming out that people are doing a great job with. So it's a combination of things. It takes a village, I think, and I think we're all going to keep making cooler and cooler content for it as we get deeper into the game once it's launched.
So would you recommend going in with a team of just friends? Even if everyone's a rookie, do you think you'd still do okay, or are you just going to get slaughtered in there?
No, we're going to match you up against people of similar skill. We're going to establish where you sit in your kind of relative skill, and we'll put you with other people. Thankfully, the game has a lot of ways to kind of ease you into it. So initially, you can get in and just play practice mode where it's just you and bots. So even if you don't have any friends to play with, you can totally jump in and do that. If you have a friend, you can jump in and play versus AI. And I think that's a really safe place to play. And actually, a lot of people just choose to play there eternally. They don't really want to ever play PvP, so they might just play against the AI forever. And that's totally okay. I think we're building the game around supporting that type of player behavior. There's definitely Quick Match, which is a really fun way to play the game where you get to pick the hero that you want to play, unlike other games usually where you're kind of relegated to either a hero that's available to you in a draft or one that's going to get put together for you by like a team composition builder tool. You basically can just pick the hero you want and queue up, and you're going to get that hero. So that provides some relative safety as far as playing a hero that you're comfortable with or the one that you know the most about.
Sure.
But I think even if you just grab one friend and jump into the game, I think the experience is dramatically better than playing by yourself. And I think the more friends you have, the merrier there. I definitely, throughout alpha and beta and now going into launch, I've have a lot of friends from work. I have a lot of friends from outside of work. There are a lot of people I've met in the community where I'll play a game with someone once, and if they kind of seem to match my attitude and general demeanor, I will invite them and we'll become BattleNet friends where then I'll play with them the next time I see them on. And I think it's been a pretty good experience to just find people to play with in addition to my real life friends. And I think the game is very welcoming to people to kind of come in that way together and provides lots of different ways to experience it. That's not necessarily hardcore. Like Hero League and Team League are ranked modes, and those are buried. You have to hit level 30 or level 40 to even get to those things. So we're definitely kind of easing you in and ramping you into that more hardcore competitive way to play.
So you guys at Blizzard must start up a lot of new accounts just to kind of get a feel for the waters for rookies out there. And I'm curious, what have you noticed with the Heroes community? Have you found yourself having to ban people? Or like, I was just thinking, like, I started playing a little while ago and I was playing with Dan, and there were a fair amount of people like, dude, you suck, you're terrible. And I felt so bad for bringing my team down. And like, they weren't completely hostile, but you can tell that they really didn't like me being on that team.
Sure.
So how do you get a feel for the community, and how are you helping to kind of cultivate a positive learning community?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing process, and I think it is the kind of the eternal question with online games, especially with PvP games, where there are a lot of people who take things very seriously, and there are a lot of people who, whether they're having a good day or a bad day, are always lashing out at other people about it. Obviously, the perfect answer to that is you always play with like-minded people, whether they're your friends or not your friends, that are going to kind of treat you in a way that you're going to treat them. And that obviously doesn't just work out. There's not like a magic pill to just make that happen. We're trying to provide the beginnings of systems that we think will help curb those things. For starters, like, we don't let you communicate with the opposite team at all. That was a choice we made very early on in it. So where in some of these games, not only are you being harassed by your own team because they don't like the way you're playing, but the enemy team would just kind of give you grief the entire game. So that doesn't happen at all in Heroes of Storm. It's just turned off completely. We also have a way right when you get in the latest builds right now where you can actually opt out of chat entirely if you want to. So if you don't want to talk to people or hear them, or if even the notion that someone's going to say bad things to you or tell you that you suck or something, you can just turn that off and not listen to it. Usually those people who are saying those things are totally off base. They're either coming at it from a really weird angle, or they're just having a crappy day or a bunch of games and they just want to pick someone. And the first person who screws up will generally be the source of their, or the target of their wrath there.
I think Dan could tell you they're pretty justified.
This time they may have been right.
So, and in that situation, what might have happened is Dan's been playing for longer than you have, and when you guys banded up, your combined MMR said, "Hey, you guys are pretty good," so you brought in some other people. But
I guess probably
those people, I guarantee that guy wasn't that good in that scenario, and he's probably just a jerk at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but,
can you ban him from the game though? That's what I really wanted to get Blizzard on the line to ask.
You can actually report people from in the game UI.
Right.
If you go to the tab menu, there's a little wheel icon. You can go to that. There are report options there. We'll be continuing to flesh those options out and give you more ways to report. But even today, if someone's like bad-mannered or talking crap or using bad language or any of things of the spectrum that is like an inappropriate way to interact, we do track those things. We do react to those, and we do suspend and ban people. We also have additional things in the works, like auto silencing players that get reported a lot for those types of bad manners things, where they will not be able to talk to anybody else on their team except for friends of theirs. So those kind of people will actually start getting automatically kind of silenced, which is going to be a really cool thing, I think. Like, we're not going to be able to get away from all those guys, so we really need to just kind of put them in their corner and let them do their thing by themselves.
Sure. So Dan, I'm curious, after you've spent so much time with this game, especially recently, like, what are some of the higher level strategies that have emerged, or things about the game design that's kind of shown through?
I think especially for players that are coming in, for one thing, it works on two fronts. For players who have never played a MOBA or a game of this genre before, this is probably one of the more accessible and probably the best entry-level experience that you can get. But on the other end of things, when I started playing a long, long time ago in Technical Alpha, I wasn't sure that there was going to be sort of the higher tier play with a lot more complexity, because, they did room, there's no denying, there's no creep farming, but all these things turned out to be good things, actually, in the end. And it's really, really focused on laser team play, where one mistake can turn a game around. Like, it's pretty crazy. And just setting up some of the bigger plays, like stuff that you don't even think about when you're starting, like getting Sergeant Hammer's missile to orbit around the map, and then positioning the other team where the missile will be on the rotation by forcing them to an objective, that's the easiest way to do it. But other stuff like that, cool interactions that you may not understand on first blush.
Sure. Do you have recommendations for like starter characters that people should jump to if they're starting out with this game?
Yeah, we try to we try to create tiers in the current hero roster, and kind of the easiest way to see what those are. There are difficulties that are exposed, but there's also even the pricing structure, like on the gold prices for heroes. The 2,000 gold heroes are generally the ones that we think are really good starting points for most players. A lot of them are going to be ranged, so you'll get to stay back a little bit and not be right in the thick of things like a melee hero would be. And then they also generally are not as complex to play, all of the starter heroes. So, Reiner is the tutorial hero. He's one of them. It's like Vala, Malfurion, ETC. What are the other ones? Lily. There's one more. But those ones we kind of steer you to them. So even in the beginning, as you're starting to play through the game and we give you gold, it's like you're getting the amount of gold that you can go buy one of those heroes right away with. So that's kind of like you get a free hero right away, and it's one of those unless you want to save up for another one. So I think we kind of inject you in and give you the safest to play. But what's kind of cool about those heroes is that I think all of them, even though they are the easier ones to play, they also still have a lot of depth on the other end. And I think most players will still see that you continue using those heroes even later in your experience, and they kind of never become obsolete. They just happen to be the ones that were a little more approachable in the beginning. That's kind of the vibe for the whole game. But I definitely think the starter heroes exhibit that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was tempted to go for the starter pack, which came with Reiner because I love StarCraft. And I was like, but I don't want to be the one of 8,000 Rainers out there. Everyone's going to be Reiner, right? Because he's like a predominant part of the tutorial. So I thought I'd differentiate myself by going for a hard character. And I don't think it was the correct move, judging from the reaction of Dan Tack.
Those ones definitely, they help. And again, there's this interesting cycle where you'll see a lot of players right off the bat, they're obviously going to go to Reiner because he's safe. He's actually free to play in practice mode as well. So he remains kind of something you can play against the AI even in the beginning. Sure. And then you see this cycle where people start branching out and they explore other heroes. So you'll see a band of levels where they've gone off and started finding other heroes to play. And then you also see this return to him, in the later player levels where suddenly he's in vogue again, and they find his utility is really great once you get later on in the game too.
Great. So now that the game is launched, can you talk about Blizzard's roadmap for the future? Are you constantly going to be adding characters? Are you going to be at a set schedule for updates, or how are you guys looking with that?
Definitely. So, this is launch, which this is really a different kind of game for us, especially, my team is used to making box products, again, StarCraft, Warcraft, StarCraft 2. So we're used to making games, working on for multiple years and releasing them and then going away and maybe 2 years later coming back with an expansion. This thing, while it's launched, it's not done, and it's really not ever done. I think this is a game where we have so much stuff in store for it and tons of things in development today that are not going to come out until the middle of next year because of how long it takes us to create and validate all these things. So there's so much cool stuff coming, and what you're seeing is just the beginning. And it's a really exciting process for us, where instead of having to hold all this stuff back or putting it in a package and waiting years to release it, you guys are going to see it coming in constantly. So you definitely can expect to see frequent hero updates, new battlegrounds coming online. At BlizzCon, we announced that there is a Diablo-themed battleground coming, so you will see the Blizzard IPs coming into our battlegrounds as well as the heroes continuing to come in. And as you've seen, we've already shown that we're willing to kind of go to anything that's ever been in a Blizzard game is fair game. So we brought in the Lost Vikings that go all the way back to 1992 with our earliest game. So anything Blizzard is ripe for the picking here, which is pretty exciting.
That's the most fascinating part, is having like the characters subdivided into different games. Then you just have, is it Blizzard Classics? Is that what you call the Lost Vikings category?
I think that is what we called it, yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of room there to flesh that out. And I'm just curious, is anything off the table, or have you guys lined up the rights to practically everything from Blizzard's past catalog?
So of the Blizzard games that we've released a series of them. So Blackthorn, Lost Vikings, and Rock and Roll Racing are all owned by Blizzard. So anything from those can come back into it. The games before that we made when we were a console developer were all licensed things for other
Sure.
products. So none of that stuff will come in, but of all the Blizzard IPs, anything is fair game there.
The idea of Blackthorn is super, super exciting.
Yeah, we need more mullets in our game for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, do you have any questions?
Not that I haven't already asked.
Okay,
That's what I'm talking,
perfect. Cool. I mean, to close things out, I'm just curious what Blizzard will see as a success for Heroes of the Storm. What is your marker for like mission accomplished?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to all of our games. We're trying to make the games that we want to play, and I think we were very fortunate with this game that we brought it into testing from home really, really early, like ridiculously early. It was scary how early it was, actually. We sent it home with developers, in July of 2013. So it's been a really long time we've been playing from home. We got to see the company fall in love with this game, and then we got to go to a very long alpha that became a beta, and we got to see the community fall in love with it. And I think we've continually gotten reinforcement that we're kind of on the right track here, and that this game as different as it is from the other games that have come before it, those changes were really welcome and people are excited about them. So I think our gauge of success is that we're playing the hell out of this game and we really, really like it. And again, it's what you're seeing now is just the beginning. And so we're so excited about the rest of the stuff that's coming to it. And we built it with our community right there alongside us the whole time. So we've really learned how to listen to them and to kind of react to their feedback in as much real time as we possibly can in game development. So I think that sets us up for a lot of success moving forward. We got a passionate, engaged team and a really great community already. So I think we've already had success, and it just gets better from here.
Definitely. Anything else you'd like to say, or any misconceptions about the game that you want to clear up?
I think people tend to look at it and go, "Oh, this is the casual version of a game that's come before it." But definitely, that is a little too simple of kind of a view of it. It's certainly a game that anyone can get into, and that's really the way we built it. And now that it's out, I think I invite everyone to come check it out. It's a game I think you can play as your main game. It's a game you can play on the side of other games. So it's a kind of a cool experience that I think everyone should check out and make their own decision. But it certainly is a lot of fun, and we're thrilled to get it out. And thank you so much to all of our testers and everyone who's been a part of this. And we're excited to have you, along the ride with us as we move forward into the future here.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for listening or watching the Game Informer show. Be sure to tune in next week where we're going to be having a big E3, pre-E3 rundown. So we'll see you then. Bye.